And good morning, everyone. It is a Saturday. Roads are bad. It's cold outside, and stay close to a warm radio. I'm Peter Boyles. Good morning. The super 7-day forecast. It is, well, you don't need to be the weatherman, as Bob Dylan said, to know which way the wind blows. Streets are bad, and it's cold, and it's snowy. The good thing it's Saturday. 25 will be the high, 10 degrees tonight. Tomorrow, Sunday, 29 degrees, the high, 7 degrees. And then on Monday, 40 degrees, it starts to melt a little bit. When we pulled back with Caldera, we were talking about historians and talking about their first 100 days in office, where historians judge a president on the first 100 days. Hell, it's been 5 days. I don't know. Oh, it's been 5, hasn't it? It's been 5 yet? I said, 5 days. Yeah, you don't need much more than this. The 5 days. Now, who's coming up in our studio in an hour is Dr. Brian Joondeph. If you've been around conservative literature and conservative editorialists and others, Dr. Joondeph is premier, and he's a great friend, and he's coming into studio. And we call these shows jury, Jury, jury shows. And that's the inside baseball jury shows. What do you think of these first 5 days? And there's a couple of things that I listened to Caldera talk about the pardons. The one thing, and like I said, I'm going to wait for Brian to get here, and then we'll go over all the executive orders and the actions of the presidency. But how did you feel? The one that was that when Elon Musk appeared to make the fascist salute. And Musk is now, I guess, Donald Trump's closest billionaire backer. And he ignites everybody. He gives this back-to-back fascist-style salutes during the inauguration celebrations. And Musk later responded to criticism of his behavior. He said, frankly, they needed better tricks. Everyone is Hitler attack is so tired. And he's right. The salute, what do you do with that? 303-696-1971. Just at like in a warm-up to see what we do next. But I thought that was the stupidest thing to go after him for doing that. Remember, he's South African. I don't know if that means anything one way or the other, but I certainly didn't see him become Adolf Hitler. And all the alternative media outlets made him into Adolf Hitler. And I've always said that I had a professor in grad school who used to say, nobody should be compared to Hitler. There's only Hitler. And to compare someone to Hitler is, well, it's just outrageous. And Hitler gets thrown around. People get called Hitler all the time. And he said, frankly, they need better tricks. The everyone is Hitler attack is so tired. The rest of it, man alive. And with John, I agree, the pardons. Donald Trump issued presidential pardons for about 1,500 people who were involved in the January 6th attack. And those pardons included more than 250 who were convicted of assault charges, some having attacked police with makeshift weapons. I heard the end of what Caldera said. Is it right just to put that behind us now? But the far right and will they be emboldened now? Their online chat groups have been full of celebratory chatter in recent days. I read these guys. I read Proud Boys. And I said, then they like that. So what do you do with that? Is that one too? I again, the critiques of it, but boy, the rest of it. He left World Health. As you know, the U.S. announced it would exit World Health Organization, WHO, of course, that's the acronym. And the move leaves critical human, there's some humanitarian work that the United States of America has been doing since really post the Second World War, and the global fight against infectious diseases. And Donald Trump says, no, we're out of WHO. The Israeli claim to Palestinian land, the Trump nominee for U.S. ambassador to the UN endorses Israel's claim of biblical rights to the entire occupied West Bank. And like I said, I get thrown back by stuff like that. He withdrew from the Paris climate agreement. I thought that was pretty good. He pulled from the Paris climate agreement because I've never liked that. The war on who's coming into the country, the 14th Amendment. I don't know. I was listening to some talk show host here on 710 KNUS who was talking about the communist judge that did this. The guy's a Reagan appointee. he's been there a while. He is launching this war and the legal fight on the birthright citizenship. We have that. Recommitted to the death penalty. I like that. There's also the Joe Biden should have pardoned himself. I thought that was a really classic line. That was great. Putting the anti-discrimination government staff on leave. That was the one that I think will draw mostly to the lightning when Dr. Joondeph gets here. And denying transgender rights and banned the flag. So let's get this puppy off the ground. 303-696-1971. We ready to go? All right. Is it Timothy? Tim, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah. Peter?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. One quick thing about this Elon Musk thing.
Yeah.
And I won't belabor the point. I watched Musk, that video, and I don't know how many times.
You and I both.
And Peter, I have studied Nazi Germany. I have in my personal collection a ton of videos of Nazi Germany. Hitler, his staff, the German people, lining the streets and giving the Nazi salute to Hitler as he drove by. Not one time ever did any of those people, from Hitler and his generals and his government officials down to everyday people on the street, not one time ever did they ever do anything but lift their hands and arms straight up from their sides. That is the Nazi salute.
Do you know, in trivia, that prior to the Second World War, when school children in America pledged allegiance, they did the straight arm pledge. They fingers extended, that whole, and that was the way that school started. Kids pledged allegiance with the straight arm, palm down.
Absolutely.
And the boys in Germany wrecked that one. But yeah, I didn't get it. I mean, but it also makes that case about heritage media waiting for any single little bit of whatever to jump them. I'm with you.
They jumped up. I think it's Musk haters. I don't know how many. I went through Twitter, and that's the only social media I do, and that's got a lot of stuff on it. But it was just one post after another.
Yeah.
Oh, Musk, a Nazi salute. I know this.
Yeah.
And I said, you dumb, ignorant, illiterate, poorly educated fools. You've never watched videos of Nazi Germany. Peter, when I said I watched videos, I went through a ton of them. And every time a real Nazi gave a salute, their arm was at their side. They lifted it straight up.
And in rhythm, they would sing Zigau, Zigau, and do it in like a chant, like a cheer.
It is cultic. Germany was a cult.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I've studied cults for 40 some odd years. I know cults.
Yeah.
It was just one fat, giant cult. What Musk did is, I watched it again, and you did too. He touched his heart and threw it out to the people. Now, if I were him, I would have just kind of waved my hand around. I wouldn't have,
Well,
I would have been.
he's
But,
Musk.
it was,
The answer is Musk. That may be the answer. But I was
okay.
I was really, watching this whole week we've been talking about the first 100 days, hell, the first 5 days, but it is interesting. And then they pick this guy out and they bang him. And I thought to myself, no, come on. That's not what he's doing. He's not giving the Nazi salute.
No.
But, well, looking for anything, right?
Well, that's who they are. In the corporate, I call them, I'll WHO, and you can put the R and the E in there yourself. That's what I call the media.
You take care of yourself. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We go to, is it Michael on line 2? Hey, Michael, thank you. Happy Saturday morning, man. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Pete. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
The gentleman just before me said most of what I had to say, so I'll be brief. I just wanted to tell you that I had a recent experience. I just got back from Austria, where we were touring over there, and we went to Nuremberg, and we're actually sitting in the courtroom where the trials occurred. And there's a real difference between a German guide and an Austrian guide. The Austrians have no qualms about talking about this and how bad it was and how disgusting it was and why it should never happen again. But if you go to any museum, we also just got back from D.C. for the inaugural, and we went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington. There are numerous movies of the Nazi Reich, the Third Reich. That thing that Musk did is nowhere close.
No, I agree.
To the salute, nowhere even close, which shows the ignorance, the true ignorance of the left.
The two things. I also did what you did. I took a special tour. You know why the trials were held in Nuremberg.
My understanding is that is because the prisoners were in the cells below the courthouse and were easily transported up.
It was the site of all of the great Nazi rallies.
It was the home of the SS.
It's I think is it called Hindenburg Field, I think.
Yes, it is.
And that was where, what Albert Speer built the spotlights and they would do the big party rallies were at Nuremberg. So the trials were held at Nuremberg for exactly that reason. Did you go inside the courtroom?
Yes, we sat in the courtroom. In fact, I sat in the front row.
Were you surprised how little it is?
Very surprised. It is. I was very surprised. Now they've done some remodeling in there, so there may have been more room at the time of the trials. But yes, I was very surprised at how small it was.
How very.
And
small?
I also did not know. I'm sure you do because you're a great reader. But I didn't know that the reason for the trials was pushed by the United States.
Well, absolutely.
That the Russians wanted to just execute those guys on the spot. And Winston Churchill said, I don't give a damn what you do with them. But it was the United States that said, we need to try them. The world needs to hear this.
And that begs so many great questions, because why didn't they bring Saddam back and put him on trial? Why didn't they bring Osama back and put him on trial? Why didn't they bring Che Guevara back and put him on trial? Where they would have put, and then there's a book about Tokyo, about the Tokyo trials. But there were trials all over Europe. Nuremberg was just the top of the shop. But there were trials in Ukraine and Poland. There were trials all over Europe, dominated by the Soviets. And but the people that they really, really wanted, and I sat in there by myself.
Oh wow!
And there was no one there, and you're just overwhelmed. I could close my eyes and say, now Goering sat back there and, and Speer sat here. I mean, I was trying to work from memory, but those trials were, and then I had a really great young German guide, and he took me and he said, when we go in here, he said, look at the ceiling. And I went, and you go in the ceiling, and it's still all swastikas down the ceiling. It's
Yes.
oh man, what an experience we both had.
Yeah, it was spectacular. And as I say, anyone that even comes close to calling Donald Trump Hitler it just shows their ignorance,
Oh,
complete ignorance.
but it's one of those. He's the one, and it got pounded into me. There was one Adolf Hitler.
That's right.
I mean, they just don't come along all the time, and
Thank God.
really. And so the use of comparison analysis is just underwhelming. Like, come on,
It's just ignorant. And I mean, again, just educate yourself a little bit. Not you, but obviously
I
people
know.
to talk about this. Just educate yourself a little bit about this, and you will see that was a horrific regime that was brutal and murderous. And hope to God it never occurs again. If it does, it needs to be stopped immediately.
There was a museum close to close to the courtroom, where they had the government radios in there. I don't know if you saw any. Did you see that?
We did. Yes, we went through that. Yes.
Wow.
And that's the thing. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, where they actually had the Crystal Knock vase.
Yes.
The shattered vase from Crystal Knock. I mean, it's shivering to see that stuff, and it's very sad for people to believe that anyone is even close to the Nazi regime and to Adolf Hitler.
There was a radio, and they called them cathedrals, and then there was a picture. It was one of their posters or portraits, and there's an elderly man. There's a great, powerful farmer, his beautiful wife, couple of 3 kids, and they're all around the radio. Did you happen to see that? Because that to me was, wow.
Yes. Yes. I mean, the propaganda that they were able to put out by the use of the radio was remarkable. I mean, you can't say anything else.
When you think of those three men, the best being on, in my opinion, the best on air was Winston Churchill. Churchill on air during the Blitz was, you weren't going to touch him. On the other side, how good FDR was. And on the other hand, how amazing Joseph Goebbels could be and Adolf Hitler could be. And the guy that was the real stooge, wasn't any good on the air, was Stalin.
Stalin, exactly.
Stalin was terrible. But I mean, you could argue it because they all understood the radio. Winston Churchill was brilliant.
Very, very definitely understood that media, no question about it. But it was an experience. I'm glad I did it, and I won't forget it. I will not forget it.
I want to go back. There's some things I want to see. That I got a chance. I went to Russia, and I asked to see things that, that nobody, even the guides are going, why do you want to see that? And I said, because I read about it. The break's there. Right. Thank you for a wonderful call. Do a quick turnaround, 303-696-1971 on a very cold Saturday. Brian Joondeph coming. We'll do a jury show. How you like this first week? 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump issued pardons for pro-life activists, fulfilling a promise he made during the presidential campaign. The religious liberty law firm previously asked the incoming president to issue pardons for the pro-life activists who were arrested for violating the Federal Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, aka FACE, and Conspiracy Against Rights statute while peacefully engaging in protests at abortion clinics. Several of those convicted and put behind bars were elderly and in poor health. Lauren Handy was sentenced to nearly 5 years in prison for leading the pro-life protest. Formula One drivers could be suspended from racing or lose championship points for swearing or making political statements under new rules. Drivers criticized the governing body, FIA, last year after a pair of drivers were punished for swearing in FIA news conferences. There's a new system of suggested punishments for matters like swearing, causing, quote, moral injury or loss to the FIA, or making political statements. A suspension is recommended for a third offense within a 2-year period. The International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor says he has requested arrest warrants for 2 top Afghan Taliban officials over the repression of women. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
Wasted days and wasted nights. 710 KNUS, Denver Stock Station. I'm Peter Boyles. On a Saturday morning, it's cold outside. Roads are bad. 10 degrees tonight and clearing up tomorrow, but it's going to be cold all of next week. Coming up, Dr. Brian Joondeph will be in studio. We'll play jury show. How do you like this last? Well, we talked about 100 days, but it's like 5 days. Danny Kaplis' law firm. Talk about Dan all the time. I did his radio show a few weeks ago, and Dan suggests that who you choose as a lawyer shares your values, and because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you and everybody involved in the case. Dan Kaplis grew up, his dad's a cop. We've talked about his mom, dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who were hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. We went through some stuff with my family. Dan was our lawyer. He was an ace. Dan's believed to be the only attorney in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar jury verdicts. Dan's also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is the official law firm of the Nuggets and your Colorado Avalanche. Danny's law firm, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on percentage fee basis. He represents good people, all walks of life, without regard of ability to pay. He is my friend. He is a good man. If you need Dan's help, 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplislaw.com, CAPLIS law.com. For the first time, there's 2 lines open. Show just started. We go to Rusty in Denver. Rusty, thanks, and welcome to the show. Good morning.
Thank you. First time I've called after the new year. But
wow.
First, yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to one of your advertisers. I went to the butchery last night.
Oh,
in
man.
Nevada.
Yeah.
It was, I have to say it was awesome, and the
She's
service
great.
and everything was great. Yeah, it was really, really nice. And Karen, who's your friend, I guess, came by the table and said hello. And
Yeah.
I told her that, I said, yeah, I heard about it from Peter Boyles, and I said he can sometimes be a little rough. I didn't use those words, but I said that's his job as a talk show host. But anyway, to the subject at hand, a very progressive friend of mine sent me a tearful video of some lady on YouTube who was bemoaning the fact that Elon Musk made a Nazi salute. And I sent her back a quote from the ADL, American Defamation League, and in which the head of that organization, I guess it was, said, no, it wasn't a Nazi salute.
No.
And that just shut her up. She never responded to me, which is the best thing you can ever have happen with a liberal. But as far as his first week in general, oh my God, he does all the stuff he does. And then he goes to California and he has Gavin Newsom groveling in front of him.
I wonder what they talked about when they were walking
how great
together.
Was that? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the things that, I am very in favor of almost everything he did. I think he comes in with a sledgehammer when there might be other things that might be more appropriate. For instance, the pardons. I do wish he had not right away pardoned the violent offenders necessarily, but at least reviewed their cases, and maybe they did behind the scenes, but we don't know. The other thing that I didn't really like too much was, and I'm trying to keep it positive because I was definitely in favor of 95% of what he did, was when he took away the security details for Mike Pompeo, especially, and John Bolton. I mean, they both were serving their country and they're under threat from Iran. And so I don't think that was a good move.
They took it from Fauci too, didn't they?
Yeah, well, that's fine. I don't think he's I don't think he's under threat from a foreign power.
No.
If anything, the Chinese would sweep him up and give him a state dinner. But
that's funny.
But it was really just quite amazing. Everything he did, and there was not all that much pushback, which is the most incredible thing to me. And maybe they're marshaling their forces, but you're probably right that the gender stuff is going to be the first area. I'm
reading, the last couple of days and trying to check off where I think that there'll be weakness, or if not that may not be the right word, and the Musk thing was the one that I decided to lead the show with, because Musk, that salute, it caused domestic and international alarm. I don't know how much of a chance you have to read, especially in Germany, of all places, when you read the German press, where Musk had backed the far-right Alternative für Deutschland party, which is a far-right of center party in Germany. Musk was their guy. And so the salute really brought up the hackles in Germany, and I'm kind of a geek about the whole rise of the Nazis and everything that went with it, and I don't even believe it was perhaps you could say a fascist style salute, but it wasn't. I don't see it that way.
Yeah, and I don't think it was a salute to anybody, like the last caller said, or maybe you said during that call. He put his hand over his heart, and then he threw his arm out there to, I think, spread the love from his heart is what he was doing.
Yeah,
and it wasn't a fascist style salute. It was an awkward gesture, and he's an awkward guy. I mean, he's
no
brilliant,
skills.
and he may save the world. He may destroy the world, but I don't think so. I think he's going to come closer to saving the world.
He literally has no social skills, none.
Right, exactly. But boy, does he have entrepreneurial and scientific and engineering skills.
He's brilliant.
And
he's brilliant.
And some of the stuff he's done, for instance, what he did in North Carolina, and in California, giving the Starlink connections to everybody. And I just don't hear that much about the Tesla cars. I mean, that was the savior of the world for the liberals. and then all of a sudden now Elon Musk, favors Donald Trump, and
he's
those people hate Tesla. Yeah. It's so typical, and it just shows once again who they are and why they need to have a lot more introspection before they're ever really going to have a strong chance nationally.
He was beloved by the libs and beloved by the far left for creating this Tesla vehicle. And now he's like the worst human being in the world.
Yeah. And SpaceX, did you see that
Yes.
landing of that rocket with the
Yes.
chopsticks?
Yeah.
You know, when those chopsticks went out, it looked like a Nazi salute,
I
a double one.
Coming from both sides. But
So yeah, I mean, it's just they're just ridiculous, and I can't take them seriously.
well, Musk responded to criticism on X, and he tweeted, "Frankly, they need better dirty tricks. The everyone in Hitler attack is too tired," and that's true.
Well, Trump is doing so much so fast that they don't have time to catch up with it.
Well, it wasn't like we were talking before the show started, Adam and I. And I said it wasn't like he was, just making stuff up. He told you he was going to do this.
Did you see the signing ceremonies that he did when he was answering questions from the press?
Yes.
Oh my God, that was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen a politician do. That was like extraordinary. And they were questions from everybody.
Oh, he's at a point now, I think, where this is it for him. He's got 4 years ahead of him, and he's going to leave his mark. You don't know how he thinks, because there's moments where I just can't tolerate it, and then there's moments you go, well, that was brilliant. And so
I feel the same way.
Yeah, and so when everything happens and it's happening this quickly, he's not goofing off. He's really not goofing off. In other words, they're working and they're making changes as rapidly. When they pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, first day, Trump signs the executive order in front of those supporters in that arena in D.C. to quit the Paris Climate Agreement for the second time. It'll take about a year for the withdrawal to be formalized, but they say, look, they're fast tracking permits for new fossil fuel projects. And I wrote a column about, and I've told this story probably too many times, when Chuck Bonnewell and Mark Crowley and I were at Cleveland at the first Trump convention, and I met the honest to God West Virginia coal miners, two of them. They were for real coal miners, and we were walking, they were walking, and I said, those are coal miners. And I went over to introduce myself and talk to them. And these are like the grandchildren of John L. Lewis. And I'm thinking, why are you at a Republican convention? That's why they were there. Hillary Clinton was going to close coal mines, and Joe Biden was going to close coal mines. West Virginia went for Trump. And as I think in subcontinent India and in the PRC, I forget how many coal-fired generators that they've put online in the last 8 to 9 years, but it's an incredible number. And so, and they pollute like yesterday's after, and yet we adhere to this Paris Climate Agreement that lets them get away with it. And we adhere to it. And no, the Paris deal is an agreement to the third world gets away with, the second world gets away with, but the first world, the United States of America, doesn't get away with it. And
right.
The people that blame the floods and the storms and the fires on climate control, I get lost in that.
Yeah, I mean, do you really think a 1.1 or whatever it is percent or degree centigrade increase in world temperatures would have caused what happened in California?
No.
Yeah, no. I have a question. I've expounded all the knowledge that I have, so I do have a question. Have you heard anything mentioned about tariffs on India?
I was reading about tariffs last night, and what the tariffs are going to mean. He's trying to. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
A percentage of his administration is Indian American, which I love. I've spent a good deal of time in India and recently and doing business, and I'm hoping they won't stick India with tariffs. So anyway, I just wondered if you knew anything.
How about from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America?
Well, that's hilarious, but I don't think it's serious. But I don't know. I mean, who decided that it was called the Gulf of Mexico? It was probably Spanish explorer or something, you know.
But Donald Trump, in his inaugural, Donald Trump repeated his intention to rename the Gulf of Mexico. Now they're making maps, or they're going to change Denali, the mountain in the highest peak in North America, back to Mount McKinley.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was Barack Obama. It was Barack Obama that changed it or made it Denali. And what do you do with that?
I don't think you can go back and forth and change all these names every 4 years.
But that's what's happened.
I wouldn't mind seeing McKinley going back to what it was. Of course, that because of my political stripes, but also just kind of a nod to a certain amount of traditionalism, I guess. I just think it's the appropriate thing to do. But it wouldn't have been, both that and the Gulf of America thing would not have been things I would have brought up the first week, because it just gives them it just gives the adversary, if you will, ammunition, and you know, he's going to have enough ammunition, but maybe his strategy is they go after that and they really can't. They don't hit him on the substantive.
Or do you think he does it just to give them a case of the ass?
Oh yeah, that too, for sure. No doubt about that, and I love it.
I believe that as well. I'd like to have a live stream of AOC for the next few weeks or months or whatever. You know, they are talking about her being the next Democrat candidate for president.
Oh my God, I hope so.
No, I'm serious.
Well, no, I said I'm serious too.
Okay, great call. Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, we have one line open. Good morning, everyone. It is a Saturday, January 25, 2025. 25 will be the high projected today. It's cold, it's snowy, roads are bad. 10 degrees tonight, 29 on Sunday, 7 degrees tomorrow night. Dr. Brian Joondeph, who has been a great friend for such a long time, is coming in studio this morning. These are, I call them jury shows. They're what do you think? And Donald Trump's first 5 days, I had to come in. I had to double check with Adam. I said, it's 5 days, right? Adam said, yeah. And also part of this, the Mexican government refuses to accept a U.S. deportation flight. I'm getting a lot of text messaging on that. But then also the Gulf of America and Mount Denali, those kinds of things, taking down flags, quitting World Health. I wonder what Dr. Joondeph thinks about that. But and then the biblical Israel, you kind of bite your tongue. So you want to take the poll? All right. 710 KNUS Denver's Talk Station. One line's open. Stay here. Shotgun. It's a Saturday and it's cold and snowy, and Dr. Joondeph will be here in a second. January 25, 2025. I'm Peter Boyles, and it's going to be 25 for high and 29 on Sunday and Monday, 40 degrees. I see we're close. Are we close to the turn? No, we're in good shape. Lines are jammed. Do we start at Marcus at the top? All right, we'll do that. Marcus, you're on a radio show. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Thank you.
Oh, you too. I was going to ask you a question. My grandfather always said, never drive with a one-eyed man in the snow. Is that true?
I don't know. It's good, but I don't know.
But I don't know either.
Never. Remember, the great thing is never play poker with a guy named Doc. And
that's right.
Never eat in a place called Mom's. There was the third one of those. Never do. Yeah, never do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, go ahead.
So I was going to, okay. So on Trump's deportation, they rounded up 238 convicts, and Mexico would not let them land, which is weird. So what's your take on that?
Mexicans didn't want them back. It's pretty simple. These guys are they're criminals. If they were trying to bring 300, drug dealers or whatever the hell back to the U.S. out of a Guatemalan prison, I don't know if I'd say, hey, let's land them and give them whatever it is that they're going to need. No, I think
They needed land, and they wanted to take them to Guatemala, and that's strange. So I want to see what happens.
Well, there's a showdown on. We've been talking about on multiple issues on Trump's first week, and believe me, there's a showdown coming on almost every one of them. And what Donald Trump has done is a military deportation flights. And that's what the Trump administration's crackdown on illegals has been set in motion. So if the Mexicans won't let them land, now what? So I think that do you just take them across the border, and take them down on that's like they call it Con Air, and that's really what they are. That was a Con Air flight.
Yeah, but the Mexican army has soldiers on their borders. We don't.
Well, they have
that whole army's up there.
You have to see the border between Mexico and Guatemala. You want to see a border? I've been on that border, and I'll tell you what, that border makes the U.S.-Mexican border look like a day at the beach. I mean, they have a border.
I believe you.
And I've been on the border.
I haven't been there, but I believe you.
I've been on the border between the DR, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. That's a border. And there's a border, it's called the DMZ, and there's a border that was, the Berlin Wall. Borders work. They do work. People say, oh, they don't work. Yes, they do. I'll show you lots of places in the world where they work. The border between Palestine and Israel, that border works. Now, it's there
DMZ in Korea.
I mentioned that. The DMZ, that works. Yeah. Guatemala and Mexico, that works. They're serious too. I mean, they don't want those guys coming into Mexico, and they're locked and cocked. And so
what do you think's going to happen, Peter?
I don't know. Showdowns. There's going to have to be a showdown.
Yeah,
on this one.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and there's showdowns coming on a lot of this stuff. But in the meantime and in between time, he said, this is what I'm going to do. And he started out and he's doing it. Now, these are all going to be fights. They're big fights too. Watch. The DEI fight's going to be a big fight. The government, they're going to deny transgender rights and banning flags. So the government agencies that issue passports and visas and other official documents have been ordered only to allow male, female as options, which I think is a great on-air question. And here's the quote: as of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there will only be two genders, male and female. That was in the inaugural, he said it. The advocates for gay rights and all of it have warned that all the transgender rollbacks, and the State Department has been banned consular posts from flying any flags other than that of the U.S. And there's remember, under Biden, they flew Black Lives Matter flags and they flew gay pride flags, and Trump says no more of that. And there's only two options: male, female. And I don't know if you're gonna have to prove it, but there it is. And so, what do you think?
Well,
of that?
probably your birth certificate.
Yeah, no. So, what do you do with that?
I don't know, because gay people have been around so long, and I don't see any problems with their flag. Transgender is something new on the front. And
yeah.
I mean, it's crazy these days with the legals and everything.
Yeah.
Flying them in, and states losing money, and homeless, cutting services. It's like, what the hell is going on?
What's the city of Denver's a joke, but this is Donald Trump again from the inaugural. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. And then they go on to say the Department of State has also been banned from flying any other flag. And under the Bidens, they flew gay pride, they flew Black Lives Matter flags, and they were flown at embassies abroad. And I don't know how what that fight's coming. The one I like is the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. Watch that fight. And
well,
he's still.
It's probably going to be America if he's good.
he's dropped them on their nose. Thanks for a good call. Thank you. How close are we? 2 minutes. We got time. We go to Johnny. We got 2 minutes, man. You're welcome to the show.
Hey, real quickly, the guy that you were talking to before the break, he says how he shuts down liberals. On July 13th, the liberals, we were downstairs watching TV, and the liberals saying, Hitler, Hitler. And I said, give me a count of how many Jews did Trump kill? And they shut him up.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's an analysis that's floating around that he is pro-Israel, and hence, as Patsy Ramsey said, how can you then be anti-Jewish? And it's about geography, but it's interesting to say, he hates Jews, but look how pro-Israel he is.
Right. And to the topic I was going to talk about, okay, I in 2012, I've been to Moscow 6 times, $900. I can, now that I have this, my friends can get me get this iPhone back when I had a flip phone. And now yesterday I could watch Trump in North Carolina and California and Vegas. Yeah. And it's like, as a guy that I don't have $900 to spend, or it's even more now. It's like $1,500 now to fly. I don't have that kind of money, but with this iPhone,
you can do anything.
I can go anywhere I want.
I know. Look, good call. We're there. Right. Thanks, John. All right, we're pretty close now. Now, coming up, Dr. Brian Joondeph in studio. We haven't done a show like this for a while, and Dr. Joondeph and I see the world many places we see it identically, in some places we don't, but they're called jury shows, and we've already started it. What do you think of this? It's only 5 days. I mean, these guys have come out swinging in 5 days. Look at the fights are going to be there, and you can see one after another. But one thing for sure is he wasn't kidding, was he? When he said he was going to do it, he did it. So 25 will be the high, as all we get. 10 degrees tonight, 29 on Sunday, Monday 40, 44 on Tuesday. We return on 710 KNUS with Dr. Brian Joondeph right after this. Good morning again, everyone, on a Saturday, the 25th of January, 2025. And it's going to be, well, it is. It's cold outside. Roads aren't great. 25, all we get. Snow continues. 10 degrees tonight, 29 on Sunday, and Monday, 40 degrees. Please welcome back into the studio. And we have a great lifetime together. There's a magazine called American Thinker. And back when I forget, it was Casey was running the show. Yeah. And I said, get this guy on. We were having him on as a phone guest. And Casey said, he lives here. I went, what? And he's a physician and he lives here. So that's when you started coming into the studio. You'd come in your scrubs getting ready to go operate.
Yep.
And you would
6 o'clock hour, 6 to 7, and then off to work.
They go off to the hospital. And so Dr. Brian Joondeph is our guest. And these are called, as I mentioned in the last hour, we used to call these back in the day jury shows. It's a steal by me from Dick Clark's Rate the Record. And Dick Clark would play a record and ask the little dancers if they liked it or not. And it had a good beat and you could dance to it. So Donald Trump said a good beat and you can dance to it.
It's amazing.
We talked about what historians talk about, the so-called or alleged first 100 days. Today's 5. Today's the 5th day. And all right, so your overall view of all of this.
Well, this morning, Ellen reminded me that a month ago was Christmas Day. And I told her, no, 5 days ago was Christmas Day. Monday was Christmas Day.
Okay.
For so many of us, Christmas came and we've been having presents galore the past 5 days. It's been an amazing start. Trump has hit the ground running, which begs the question of this had to be put into place far longer than the transition period. He didn't put all this in place, the executive orders, the staffing. He didn't have this put together 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. This has been years in the making, which begs the question of, how much of this had to play out this way? Purportedly losing in 2020 and having a 4-year period to let things go to crap, see how bad things were, make it bad enough that he has 4 years to build up his team, his executive orders, his plans, and he hits the ground running. He's done more in 5 days than other president transitions do in their first 100 days. He's taken more questions from the press in the first 24 hours when he was signing those executive orders than Biden did in 4 years.
Yeah.
He's signing orders and he's taking impromptu questions as he's signing them. Who does that? I've not seen a president do that. Biden, you could count on 2 hands the number of impromptu questions he would take.
As an amateur historian, cause and effect and why things happen and why Donald Trump gets reelected and the just utter destruction of the Democratic Party, it rivals the destructions that the Republican Party has gone through. You could have picked a worse candidate, but it would have been tough. What happened internally inside of the Democratic Party, do you believe I do you believe the theory of the palace coup, that they went in and got rid of Joe?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it was painfully apparent for 4 years that he was.
You're the one who pointed that out to me first.
Yeah. He was having cognitive issues long ago.
Yeah.
Long before he was president.
Yeah.
He was installed as the most electable. And you and I disagree on the 2020 election, but I don't buy that it was legitimate for a second. But be that as it may, and maybe we'll learn the truth of that in the next few years.
Well, I think we're going to learn that. We know the truth of it when Fox News settled.
Well, that's one aspect to it.
There's Newsmax settled.
There's the social media influencing. There's the 51 intelligence officials. There's election interference in so many levels. COVID ushered in all sorts of unconstitutional changes in election laws that were not passed by legislators, mail-in ballots, 51 intelligence officials downplaying the Hunter Biden laptop. So
I agree with all
ways,
of that. But
leave the machines aside. We can,
but
that's for another time.
But that's been announced. The lawsuits will advance here in Denver.
Oh, that's fine. Let them. And if people did wrong, they should be
Giuliani.
dealt with.
I can give you a list of what they did. I don't want to do that, but
Rasmussen's done surveys, and a majority of people, at least in their surveys, feel that the 2020 election was rigged. But you can argue how. There's as Chuck Schumer would say, 6 ways from Sunday to rig something. So you can rig elections in many ways. But be that as it may, my point is that if Trump won in 2020, he would immediately be a lame duck. He'd be surrounded by many of the same people, the same attitudes, the same weaponized deep state against him. He would have got very little done. There is no way in 4 years of a second term he could accomplish what he's done in 5 days. So he needed this time out, this 4 years in the wilderness to rebuild his team, to regroup. So it's in a football game, they have a halftime for that purpose.
That's interesting.
A team is losing and they go in and sit with the coach and have a talking to and calm down and get their heart rates down and get their brains on right. And they come out and they're in the second half, they're a new team. And that's what Trump did.
Dr. Brian Joondeph here. Well, like I said, the utter failure of the Biden 4 years sets it up. We've seen that many, many, many times, rightfully so.
The Democrats have no bench. Biden was the best they could do. He was electable. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, they don't want a Bernie Sanders in there.
No.
So Biden it was his turn. It was the way the Republicans used to play the game. It's John McCain's turn. It's Bob Dole's turn.
Sure.
That's not an effective way to.
And the party elite had stepped over Joe Biden so many times.
It was his turn.
That's it.
And he was the most electable, least offensive. It was kind of like you had a handful of candidates, and one by one you eliminated them until Joe was the last one standing.
Because, I believe that too.
Bernie's crazy. Elizabeth Warren's crazy. Yeah. Marianne Williamson, Bloomberg, the Starbucks guy. I mean, all these people, they're not serious candidates.
They had nobody.
So Biden was it. But he was clearly in cognitive decline. He hasn't been making the decisions.
No. Who has?
Good question. Jake Sullivan, Tony Blinken, Susan Rice, Barack Obama.
But do you believe that, I've pondered this and asked it on the air. Do you believe that the Bidens voted for Donald Trump?
I would not be surprised.
No, I wouldn't either.
Because this is another sideline. Joel Gilbert, who he's a friend of mine. He wrote a book, did a movie on Michelle Obama, and made a very compelling case that Michelle Obama was going to be the last-minute nominee. Yeah. So what happens when they push Joe out? Joe, and probably with the help of his family and wife, immediately endorsed Kamala Harris. That ices Michelle out of the game. All of a sudden, Biden endorses Harris, and she's the candidate, and the media runs with it. And where's Michelle? Maybe that's why Michelle didn't show up.
She's not showing up. That's right.
So that's what Joel thinks, that she's furious
Did you see when the Bidens walked out and when Dr. Joe is wearing red? The party of the color of the Republican Party.
There are little signals, and if you want to read into those, absolutely.
I'm Freudian enough to go. She did that on purpose.
This was a coup, and it was Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, whoever, Obama, having a talk with Joe and saying, "You're going to step aside, or we're going to invoke the 25th Amendment."
Do you believe that there's a theory out there that says that while she was really campaigning for money, Donald Trump we're going to talk about Musk, but Musk's guys that understood the internet, they understood how to campaign on the internet, they understood how to do all of this, and Trump stood up there. I was amazed, even in his inaugural, he'd attack these guys in his inaugural, which is really, I don't know if it's acceptable or unacceptable, that doesn't matter, but the fact that he did. So that idea that she was out campaigning to raise money, and he was out there running to win the office.
Oh yeah. Well, the Harris campaign went through, I heard, $2.5 billion.
Yes,
They paid
yes.
paid Oprah $1 million for an interview
to show up.
Yeah. And they went through this money, and they have nothing to show for it. Trump was smart. He enlisted the tech people.
And
the other
Musk.
secret weapon he has is his son, Barron. Barron's a smart guy. And Barron's a freshman at NYU.
Put him on Rogan.
And Barron understands his generation.
Oh, yeah, very
and
much
I think
so.
he was instrumental in bringing whatever generation we are now, Gen Z or whatever, into the mix through social media, through TikTok.
They took him to UFC fights. They took him with Rogan, and they went with McGregor. And
Barron's a secret weapon. And
that's really smart. That's interesting.
And he whispered something to Joe Biden at the inauguration, and
What
that's big speculation, as much as the speculation of what was in those white envelopes at George H.W. Bush's funeral.
Yes.
That were handed out. Trump was president then.
Yep.
And the look on Jeb's face when he looked at what was in the envelope was much like the expression on Joe Biden's face at the inauguration. How about that? That's a big mystery.
What were they laughing? What were they laughing about at Jimmy Carter's funeral when you could see Donald Trump and Barack Obama? They're laughing.
That's a good question. I mean, they're both personable guys.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's interesting.
Do you think? I mean, when Obama is, I don't know if he still holds sway.
No, I don't think he does. And there's, divorce rumors now.
Yeah, I know.
Jennifer Aniston and who knows what. And I don't know what to make of those. Maybe that's just a distraction, or the media trying not to talk about Trump.
If Biden wasn't, and now Joe comes out and said, I should have stayed in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one of Rocky's opponents that's knocked out, and if it wasn't a 10 count, it was a 12 count. Yeah, I would have gotten up and I would have won the fight.
Yeah,
that's boxing, and
sure.
If you give the guy that's knocked out 2 more seconds, they're not going to get up and win.
No, so the whole thing.
That's Joe and his ego, and I think a bubble was around Joe that he didn't know the situation.
Oh.
Speaker Mike Johnson gave an interview a week or 2 ago.
Saw it.
That Joe signed an executive order, and he didn't know what it was.
That's right.
It was banning gas wells in the new Gulf of America.
Yeah. You like
that? That's great. off the shore of Louisiana, which is Johnson's district. Yeah. And Joe thought he was signing something about research.
Yeah. Well, they said that in the end in Germany, the end of Weimar, where Paul Hindenburg was so out of it that guys would put their lunch bags down and he'd sign, thinking that he was signing some proclamations.
Well, how long does this go? I mean, in other words, who's been running the government? I wrote a piece on that a few weeks ago in American Thinker about who is really in charge, and what are the implications. Special Counsel Robert Hur, in his report on the declassification stuff, in his report, said Joe Biden's a kindly old man, but has a poor memory, and we couldn't put him on a stand. In other words, he's not with it enough to be a defendant in a criminal trial. That's the president of the United States. What do you mean with it enough?
He fell apart. The first, and they were the ones that wanted the first go round, the first debate, and Donald Trump came out as the right Donald Trump, and Biden, he just watched Biden and then Biden goes to do the NATO press conference and he walks away.
He walks away all the time.
Yeah.
So who set up the first debate? Was that
the
really
Democrats did?
Yes. Was it Joe?
No.
Joe had nothing to do with it.
I think they wanted to show the American people why they wanted, or how they had to, or
they had to get rid of him because their polling was that Biden was going to lose to Trump.
He was the illustration.
So they needed to do something, and this was part of the big plan. You go back to Joel Gilbert's book and all that of getting rid of Biden and getting Michelle in. The convention was in Chicago, Michelle's hometown.
Oh, you know that.
She was following all the patterns that Barack did many moons ago before he was nominated.
Yep.
And this was to pave the way. And when he finally dropped out, he endorsed, and maybe that was Jill or his family or whoever, or Hunter, I don't know. They said, screw you. You're going to push us out. We're going to endorse Harris and foul up your plans. And Michelle was left out.
She really has vanished.
The door closed, and she was on the outside looking in. Then Kamala Harris was a worse candidate than Biden. I mean, a total lightweight who's going to be a footnote in history. And even Biden's going to be 50 years from now, he's going to be a trivial pursuit question. Who is the president that served between the two terms of Donald Trump?
Can you
a guy
think
named Joe Biden? That's going to be his only his only legacy.
Buchanan.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be one of those. He's as the years go by, he's going to be completely irrelevant. Trump is rewriting the entire past 4 years.
Sit still. We'll go back. We'll continue. Dr. Brian Joondep's here. Your calls. This is a jury show in sense of so much to talk about. And Doc just did that great line, the Gulf of America. Let's buy Greenland. That's so. Do you think he's doing it? I just mic'd you back up. Do you think that's on the level?
Greenland, yeah. The Gulf of America. Well, Biden signed an executive order or whatever was put in front of him at the last minute, stopping oil exploration in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes.
So what's the quick way around it? Rename it. We're not drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. We're drilling in the Gulf of America. And I think part of it's to tweak the media. Because CNN will have panels all day long about Gulf of America versus Gulf of Mexico.
Well, because I know you're writing about it, about the Musk fascist salute.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Hang on. I'll come back with that. Ski resorts are experiencing the best snow conditions right now, making it the perfect time to consider taking your skis, your snowboards to tune up, get them all ready. Or if you did not get the gear you wanted for the holidays, now the best winter sports equipment, head over to Larson Ski and Sport, located south of I-70 on Kipling. Whether you're looking to rent or buy equipment, Larson's has got you covered, dedicated to providing you with the best skiing experience possible. The convenience of Larson's is it's unbeatable. I don't know. I've represented these guys for 20 years. Perfect place on way up or way down the mountain. You find them in a large wooden building. You go you're going I-70, going westbound, you're going to the mountain. Get off on the Kipling exit. You come down the ramp, make a left, you go right underneath I-70. Come out on the other side, look to your right, you see a big wooden building. There it is. 7 days a week. John Marriott, the guys, Paul, Jack, everybody, they're absolute experts at everything you need for winter sports. I tell you what, my grandson has been there now many times. Stop in today and tell them I sent you. Larson Ski and Sports, south of I-70 on Kipling, 303-423-0654, 303-423-0654, or larsonsport.com.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump plans to appeal the temporary block that a federal judge put on his executive order that ended birthright citizenship for illegal migrants who have babies in the United States. The case was brought by the Democrat states of Washington, Arizona, Illinois, and Oregon, who argued that the move was unconstitutional.
Obviously, we'll appeal it. They put it before a certain judge in Seattle, I guess, right? And there's no surprises with that judge.
House Speaker Mike Johnson held a signing ceremony for the passage of the Laken-Riley Act. The ceremony came after the House voted 263 to 156 to approve the measure, with 46 Democrats joining all Republicans in favor.
My colleagues did extraordinary work for Georgia. All the Georgia delegation worked so hard on this. This is the right thing to do. It's a really important moment for the country, and it's always good when the right thing is also the popular thing. And this is what the American people demand and deserve. They want accountability. They want us to address the human catastrophe that has come from the broken, wide open border.
President Donald Trump is saying that he plans on meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin very soon to talk about ending the war in Ukraine.
I think Russia should want to make a deal. Maybe they want to make a deal. I think from what I hear, Putin would like to see me, and we'll meet as soon as we can.
In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
We will start with calls here in just a minute. Lines are jammed. Good morning, everyone. A cold, snowy morning in Denver. I'm Peter Boyles, along with Dr. Brian Joondeph. Cold, 25 will be the high, 10 degrees tonight, 29 tomorrow, 7 degrees tomorrow night, and on Monday, 40. Dr. Joondeph in studio, and we opened the show as talking about the so-called fascist salute, and you've written a piece. I've not read it yet, but you've written a piece about what everybody's jamming Musk up for and why.
It's on my Substack. So if you want a sneak preview, it's, I think, Dr. J's Substack is what it's called, but it's published there. It's going to be an American Thinker on Monday. They had some issues with too many articles, so I'm bumped till Monday. But yes, it's about Elon Musk's supposed Nazi salute. And I listened to you on the way in, and I agree with much of it. Elon is likely on the spectrum, and he's socially awkward, which is typical for those on the spectrum.
Did you read that big book, that the Musk book? It was.
I didn't read it, but that's you.
He's who he is.
The autistic savant, like the Dustin Hoffman character in Rain Man or whatever the movie was called. He's not that
far, but
he was that character was nonverbal. Musk is very verbal, and he's a genius. He has
beyond that
formed 4 or 5 companies that forming any one of them would be a major accomplishment. And bought. He's running Twitter. He's instrumental in the Trump campaign. But yes, he's exuberant, and he did from his heart to the crowd.
Yeah.
Well, you have to look back through the Trump presidency. Trump has been called Hitler, Nazi, fascist since he came down the escalator. The fine people nonsense in wherever it was, North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina,
Good people.
Yeah, good people on both sides. And he was referring to the statue issue, because some people want the statues down, some want them to stay up. He wasn't referring. And if you listen further on the clip, he absolutely condemns the white supremacists and Nazis, that they have no place there. So, but that's all taken out of context. And that's a hoax that persists to this day. It was used in the campaign against him. You know, Biden used it, Obama used it. It's ridiculous. But that's what the left does. And I include Democrats in the media. Anybody they disagree with, they can't win on arguments, on the merits, they call them a Nazi. That's
an out card. No, it's always been an out card.
That's one of the most deplorable slurs. And that sort of shuts down conversation. And they're still doing it. And in my article, I have pictures that I captured from Twitter of other famous politicians doing the same arms salute. AOC, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, Taylor Swift, all these people, you know, with the raised arm. Yeah. Well, they're waving to the crowd or whatever they're doing. It's a gesture. It doesn't mean it's a Nazi gesture.
No.
And every Republican that raises their arm is not doing Sig Heil.
No.
But that's what the media wants you to believe.
I agree.
I don't think Elon did it intentionally, but they're not saying much because they're letting the media chase the shiny object around, and they're going to have panels, and it's going to occupy them for a week. Meanwhile, Trump is putting out hundreds of executive orders. He's taking away security clearances and protective detail, and he's imposing tariffs, and he's traveling, and he's doing all sorts of things. His appointments are getting through. Hegseth last night, Kristi Noem a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
All this is happening, and he is throwing so much at the media, they literally cannot keep up. They're chasing one thing, and he's doing 5 more things.
One other great loser out of this was what people call heritage media, corporate media. They were destroyed.
Oh, they are destroyed. They've been in the process of destroying themselves. And I'm reading about 40% of the workforce at NBC and CNN and MSNBC.
Get laid off.
I haven't had cable in my house for a couple of years. I don't watch Fox News. I don't watch any news. I get all my information from Telegram, from various websites, and from podcasts. Consider myself pretty well informed. I have to be well informed for my writing. I do not get any information from corporate media.
Do you watch anything local?
No, I don't have cable. I don't watch 9 News, local Fox. I have an Amazon Fire Stick, so if I want to watch something, I can get it. I can get Fox News.
Do you read the Post?
No.
See?
I get the Denver Post. I get an email a couple times a day with the headlines.
Yeah.
The Denver Post is worthless. It's basically propaganda. Local news is the same. They're not serious about journalists. They're agenda driven. They're pushing an agenda. I've submitted opinion pieces to the Denver Post a few times over the years. I don't even get a response, much less, thank you, but no. So I've given up. They don't want to hear a conservative voice. Are you kidding?
There's a term called mommy news. Do you think, that's what I say they're doing. They're doing mommy news.
Yeah, well, while you're taking care of the kids and futzing in the kitchen doing this, you have it. My late wife used to have Fox News on all the time, just as background.
Yeah.
That's how she kept informed. She wasn't watching it, but while she's doing stuff, it's on the TV, and she's hearing this, hearing that, and absorbing it. I don't want that. I'd rather listen to music.
One more before we go to the phones. Getting out of World Health.
Good idea.
Yeah.
World Health Organization, we fund it, China runs it.
Yeah.
That's the simplest way to look at it.
Yeah.
You've got corrupt people in charge. They're the ones that declared COVID a pandemic before it really should have been declared. And they were issuing all these edicts about masks and distancing and whatnot. They're a big part of all the stuff that at one time was conspiracy theory, now turning out to be true.
Yeah.
I wrote a lot about COVID. I lived through it with my wife, and I am pretty well informed on it. And the stuff that I was writing about, I got censured for that. I had my own troubles because I was outspoken, and everything I wrote about turned out to be true, from masks to distancing to lockdowns and vaccines and side effects and therapeutics and all this stuff. The World Health Organization was behind most of this.
United States funds.
I think it's a great idea. We're out of the Paris Accords.
I was going to bring that up next. Paris Accords. So ridiculous. The Paris Accords.
Well, it's the first world countries that are behaving themselves and spending inordinate amount of money on solar panels and windmills and these things. Yeah, they're fine. But if you look at the environmental impact of creating a solar panel, creating a wind farm, the materials, the labor, the recycling of these things, they're actually worse for the environment. You look at a Tesla, and
they loved him.
in full disclosure, I own one. I love it. I'm not trying to save the whales, but I like the tech. I like the car. But to make those batteries, it's far worse for the environment than drilling for oil. All the rare earth minerals and the child labor in the Congo to dig it all up. And you can't dispose of these and the fires that come from them. They're actually worse for the environment. And the electricity doesn't grow on trees. It has to be generated, and it's typically coal that's generating the electricity. So when you say it's saving the environment, I beg to differ. It's great technology, and when you can have a small nuclear device in the car to power it forever, then it's great. Then it won't pollute, and it'll be wonderful, but we're not there yet.
All right, so we owe Jim first, right, on line 3? All right, lines are jammed. Dr. Joondeph here. Jim, you're on a radio show. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Peter. I was just wanting to say, what shocked me the most is when Biden's walking out the door, he pardons his family.
Whole family.
Not only he pardons his family, he pardons the spouses as well.
And Fauci.
Aunt Fauci and Millie and Liz Cheney. I mean, I guess that they used to call it, I used the term the Biden crime family. It really is true. It really was true. This was a crime family. And I hope, because they have been pardoned, but I hope there is one part of the government that can go after them, and I hope Trump does do it, is he sends the IRS. They need to be audited to see where this money came from, because if you're not reporting your ill-gotten gains, you can go to jail for that. Isn't that what happened to, say, Al Capone?
They got Al on taxes. That's right.
Well, Biden's pardons are for federal crimes, and state crimes are fair game. And if there's an attorney general in one of the 50 states that wants to go after them, like Letitia James went after Trump, have at it. I'm sure there are a lot of state crimes in there that they can go after Fauci or anybody else. The other thing is having a pardon for federal crimes. They can't take the fifth if they're called to testify.
I was going to say.
So if they refuse a subpoena, you can send a SWAT team, arrest them, put them in jail. Ask Steve Bannon or Peter Navarro how that worked out. So that can be done if you defy a subpoena or if you commit perjury. That's going forward after the date of the pardon. So
one of the interesting things about pardons, if you're not guilty, why did you take the pardon?
Oh, sure. Exactly. Right. Fauci's like, I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm still taking the pardon. Well, that doesn't jive.
And that he wasn't alone, but if it's like there were two guys in the pardons of what happened in January 6th, two guys said, no, we didn't do anything wrong, so we're not taking the pardon. They're staying in jail.
I'm sure there are plans for these people.
Don't
worry.
I understand.
It will play out. Trump's not going to say, oh, well, and walk away. These are people that tried to destroy him and his family and put him in prison for the rest of his life.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the January 6th people. Two guys are staying in because they said, we didn't do anything wrong. So we're not going to take a pardon.
They can fight it, and then they have the opportunity to be exonerated and sue for wrongful prosecution. That's another strategy that these people can take.
Caller, anything? Go ahead.
I was just going to say another thing. Biden also pardoned a cop killer, or two, that assassinated a cop there in Virginia. And the other thing is, my gratitude is that we have lowered the threshold of nuclear war by tenfold with Trump now coming in. The communication now will be open between Putin and Trump. I heard that Biden and Putin never talked since the invasion.
That's correct.
How can that be? How can that be? When you are that close to exchanging nuclear war, that you would not open a dialogue with the guy that you're considering want to overthrow. Why would that not? This just shows how ill-run, how horrible the Biden administration is. That little thought never happened.
That's a dereliction of duty on Biden's part. They had no conversation. Sergei Lavrov, who Tucker interviewed, confirmed that. Zero.
What happened in that 4 years was an inept man got the most powerful job perhaps on earth. And
well,
I agree with you. And I think Trump's been critiqued already because the 5 days have gone by and the war continues in Ukraine. My best guess is within an X amount of time, Ukraine's going to be a smaller country.
Yes, something's going to have to give. We're cutting off funding to Ukraine.
That's it.
So once the funding goes away, that's it.
Have you guys read about how our weaponry is showing up, being sold in other places in the world?
Yes, black market. Why? Yeah. When the fires broke out in California, there was news of, 60 or 70 Ukrainian generals that had property in Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
How does that work?
Well,
do they pay the generals in Ukraine so well that they can buy multi-million-dollar homes?
Same thing was true in Vietnam.
I think Zelensky has a mansion, I believe I heard, in Florida. Somebody said that he has something in the state there. But
when American weaponry that we quote under PL 480 that we quote gave, although the arms manufacturers were paid with tax dollars, the weaponry got there and then makes the skip, and it ends up in other countries.
I hope one of Pete Hegseth's top priorities is an audit of the Pentagon and an audit of the Ukraine war. The Pentagon has not passed a single audit since they started doing audits over 10 years ago.
What would they audit for?
What about an audit of the CIA?
Audit of the whole government, and I think that's that's part of it. But the audit of the money that went to Ukraine and how much went into oligarchs' pockets, and didn't help the war effort.
I brought this in this morning just as a sidebar about. Here's what long secret JFK, MLK Jr. files may show. And that's a CIA hit right there. And it's Donald Trump's made the promise that we're going to see this stuff. What it may or may not reveal, but that's one to wait for. I got to cut it. Thank you for a good call. Everyone hold on just a second. David Ellis in Cherry Creek. You heard me talk, and I talk to David all the time. Taking your valuables to David Ellis Jewelers to get a fortune in cash, securing appraisals from David for all the valuables you have tucked away in your home. And it's still true. Or share another reason to see David, just in case you don't have a Rolex watch, rare coins, or a silver tea set. Go see David Ellis for all your most meaningful gift-giving occasions. David Ellis Jewelers, just the right items, just the right price, special people that mean the most. An antique watch, an emerald pendant, gold necklaces and diamond rings. Look, Valentine's Day is around the corner. Trusted Jewelers been buying precious metals and antiques in Colorado for decades. Has dazzling cases filled with hundreds of new and used pieces for your loved ones, and they will treasure them. You see David Ellis Jewelers, see for yourself. The black awning on the corner of 3rd and Clayton and Cherry Creek. Explore DavidEllisJewelry.com. Call my friend David Ellis at 303-322-8779 and tell him I sent you. It's a Saturday, everybody, the 25 of January, 2025. I'm Peter Boyles along with Dr. Brian Joondeph on a Saturday. The weather, well, here we go. It stays like this. 25 is the high, snow and cold, and at 10 degrees tonight, 29 on Sunday, and on Monday it is 40 degrees. Lines are jammed, have been jammed. We're talking about, obviously, the first 5 days, sort of a recap. Presidential historians usually talk about the first 100 days. They judge the first 100 days of FDR, the first 100 days of JFK, the first 100 days. This is day 5.
Yes, history will record this as the first 10 days. You don't need 100 days.
No.
There's going to be so much.
I'm saying that
Amazing.
it's coming. And you had me rethinking that they've had this model in place ready to drop it back in, given the opportunity to win. That all of this stuff that we're talking about now has been back in the pipe for quite a while, or at least
I think Trump was okay with how the 2020 election turned out because, as we talked about earlier, if he won in 2020 and was president another 4 years, he could not do a fraction of what he's done already in 5 days. He needed that break. And
did he need Joe Biden to screw it up?
Yes. Things had to get bad enough.
Yeah.
You had to have economy and foreign wars in Ukraine and the fallout from COVID and the environmental stuff and the DEI stuff and the illegals, the open border, things that just on so many levels got America fed up. And Trump won big. Trump won all the swing states. He won. Yeah, nobody wins a landslide anymore because it's a divided country.
Yeah.
But he won convincingly, and he needed that time. And I think in the past 4 years, he knew he was going to win, and he's been putting all this together because this didn't come about only in the transition.
Oh,
you think of 8 years ago. He didn't think he was going to win. He was actually surprised he won.
So was Hillary.
And yes, very.
Yeah.
And Trump had to scramble. Yeah. He didn't know the rules of the game. Now he does. He knows what's going on, and he was well prepared, and he hit the ground running. Minutes after inauguration, the executive orders, these had to be prepared. He needed a team in place to do it.
Barack Obama takes Mount McKinley and names it Mount Denali. Donald Trump reverses it. It's minor, but it's major. Your thoughts about that?
Well, it's the same as Mount Evans. Mount Evans is now Mount Blue Sky or something. So it's named after people who they did what they did. It's
men of their times.
Yes, and it's not defending them. Times have changed, but it's historical, and it's important we remember. Just like when Eisenhower liberated the concentration camps, said, photograph everything. People can never forget this.
Freeze it.
Yes. So
did so.
Keeping the name of Mount Evans, Mount McKinley, I think that's the right way to go. But doing it by executive order is silly. I think Congress needs to codify this. And it's unfortunate with all the executive orders. They're a stopgap because the next president can reverse any and all of them.
Sure.
Congress needs to get off their butts and do their jobs and legislate and put these things into legislation that are a lot harder to reverse.
I wrote a column about Trump winning, and one of the things I think that they underlooked, and I'm talking about the Democrats, is they took all these military installations, they took all these different statues down, they renamed streets and highways and mountains. And it just didn't work that way. I mean, renaming Benning and Bragg and Gordon, Jackson, and all of those places, it was what? Renaming, you mentioned Mount Evans.
It's virtue signaling, and it's silly.
That's all it is.
It demeans the historic nature of all this.
The Stapleton neighborhood.
Stapleton, yeah. What's the matter with Stapleton? So he owned slaves. So did most of the founding fathers, or whatever Stapleton did.
He was a Klansman.
Okay, well, so was Robert Byrd.
Oh, absolutely.
And Hillary was his best friend, and Joe Biden loved him.
Oh, yeah.
So that's okay, I guess.
Well, in the inaugural,
he renamed Hillary Clinton.
Donald Trump in the inaugural. By the way, Dr. Joondep's here. Peter Boyles on 710 KNUS. Donald Trump said, I intend to rename Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. You said it's because of oil.
I don't know for sure, but I'm speculating because Biden signed an executive order on his way out that banned new drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, if it's the Gulf of America, he's not drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. That's a simple explanation. The other is Trump just wants to tweak everybody. And
I think that's
it's like the military jet that's being attacked. They throw out chaff or whatever it's called to so the missiles chase it. Submarines do the same. And I think that's what he's doing. CNN will have a full day panel on Gulf of America. Meanwhile, Trump takes away security clearances and is doing all sorts of other things.
Have you seen how far CNN has dropped in the Nielsen's? They're
laying staff off. They're dying. They don't know it. It's a slow death, and it's they're committing suicide basically.
One more, and then we go to the phones. Donald Trump and the inaugural. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there will be only two genders, male and female. That set everybody off.
What a concept. If you go back 30 years ago and said anything to the contrary of that, people would look at you like you were insane. So good for him.
And also he said, I'm looking at my notes, on this, the Department of State Department has now banned consular posts from flying any other flag other than ours, or the U.S. flag. One flag policy, it's called, and appears that, I guess, under Biden, gay pride flags flew and Black Lives Matter flags flew outside of embassies around the world.
America survived and thrived for about 225 years with the American flag only and with two genders. So we're just going back to that. We had a detour of what I think is silliness.
Yeah.
And going back to common sense. Trump stressed common sense.
They're all going to get into these will all lead to fights. Fair enough. I mean, it's
let them fight. But I think the people have spoken. They elected Trump, and he's doing what he said. What a refreshing politician that a politician campaigns on something and does what he promises. You think the majority of Americans are upset with these things? No, everybody's cheering him on.
Have you ever believed a politician? I haven't.
No, but I look at outcomes, not words. Talk is cheap.
No, that's my point.
And he's doing what he said he would do.
He's off the ground
and running. And we got to talk about Melania Trump. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, well, but I'm going to come back one more time to only male and female as options.
That's how it's been forever. It has.
No.
I mean, from Adam and Eve. There was Adam and there was Eve, and man and woman. This is traditional. I think everything else is a distraction. People can do what they want, call themselves what they want, but as far as official policy, it's a whole lot simpler.
Does this have to do with? Some of it, I think, has to do with boys copying, and then playing against girls.
Oh, that's a travesty. I've written a lot about that, about the unfairness and the danger to female athletes that have been injured. That's part of it.
That's part of what he aimed it at. Yeah, mm-hmm. He put it that way.
And the schools are all about their diversity, equity, inclusion, and wokeness, and all of that.
That's DEI.
That's out the window now.
It's gone.
Well deserved. I think people are fed up with it. It's grossly unfair. It's being reverse racism, and that's no better than racism.
And I didn't realize till I was reading last night and the night before. Starts with Lyndon Johnson. I didn't know that Johnson did it first. Brought it about, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But it was under the Great Society. It was Johnson begins this. We hear the music. When we return, we will we'll start with calls. Everybody stay here. The one and only Dr. Brian Joondeph here. I'm Peter Boyles. It's a Saturday, 710 KNUS. Good morning, everyone. It is 11 o'clock, actually 11:01 on a Saturday morning, January 25, 2025, 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. The weather, it's cold outside, cold and snow. 25 will be the high. 10 degrees tonight, 29 on Sunday, 7 degrees tomorrow night, and 40 on Monday. In studio is a dear friend, the on and off conversations. I always say that one of those days when we're going to flip it, we'll take the conversations that were off air, we'll put them on air, and then we'll call it the last day we do radio. Dr. Brian Joondeph is here with us. One of the things that I promised we'll go to the phones, but you came up with something really interesting during the pause. Melania Trump. Talk to that.
Absolutely. First term Trump. Melania kept her distance.
Oh, man.
Well, she also had a young boy to raise, Barron.
Yep. Her parents are here.
Yeah, she was very devoted to him. And she was castigated by the media. All the fashion magazines never once had her on the cover. But,
that's right.
Michelle Obama, Joe Biden. Melania is a model. She's beautiful. She has great fashion sense, the way she carries herself. If anybody of the first lady should be on the cover of Vogue and Cosmopolitan and some of these other magazines, it's her. And there was a concerted effort to blackball her from any of that. She kept a low profile during the campaign. At the inauguration, note what she was wearing. She looked like the character in V for Vendetta.
I had not thought of that.
All black and that big hat covering her eyes. I mean, she really looked badass. And she was serious. She wasn't making much in the way of small talk. At Jimmy Carter's funeral again. And yesterday I noticed Trump went to North Carolina, then he went to California. He's meeting with officials, he's interviewing people, he's talking to LA officials, including the mayor of Los Angeles, and ripping her a new one over incompetence. Who's by his side the entire time, the entire trip? Melania.
You pointed that out. I hadn't
it's fascinating.
Thought of that. That black hat with the white.
Yeah, no, he had a different outfit. It was white, but she looked like a bodyguard, like an enforcer. Like Angelina Jolie in these movies where she's some assassin or something.
Yeah.
She was by his side.
Why do you think? Why do you think?
I think they're sending a message
to
the people that she's got his back, and that if you mess with him, you're going to mess with her as well. I think she's sending that message that she's there and that she's part of the team 100%. And maybe there's other messages, but I think that's the main message. She was there. She doesn't say anything, expressionless, but she's right there. Look at the clips from yesterday of his entire trip. She's always there.
I watched the inaugural, and she had that black hat on with the white, and you're right. I mean, looking back on it, I hadn't put her together.
But why was she traveling with him yesterday? I mean,
she never traveled with him.
If it was Barack Obama, Joe Biden, George Bush, you think the first lady would be with him going to visit a disaster zone by his side the entire time? Fascinating.
Yeah.
She was there throughout the trip. And I thought that very interesting. And very out of character and unusual. And I think it's a message.
And because the Obamas were like that. The real family of going after people when the guy gets caught was Bill Clinton. I mean, Hillary Clinton would mad dog people, even though she knew.
She had a team, the Bimbo Eruption team.
That's
with
exactly
her
right.
And, I forgot the
Bloodworth Thomas and I forget the rest of those.
Yes.
And Carville.
Mm-hmm.
Carville, who is despicable.
Yeah, the Bimbo Eruption team. She was in charge of that. And
remember Carville said drag a $10 bill or a $20 bill, whatever it was,
through a trailer park.
So that was it.
Yeah.
And they did that to
Jennifer Flowers.
No, not to Jennifer Flowers.
No, not the other one.
The other young woman that worked for the state, and he brought her up to his hotel room and dropped his laundry.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a character. By the way, did you notice him? He's kind of looking like he's slowing down a little bit too.
Carville? Yeah. No, he looks
terrible. Not Carville. Clinton.
Oh, Clinton. Yeah. Clinton's been through a lot. He's had heart surgery. He's had all sorts of stuff. So, but he's not saying a whole lot. But I think Melania is sending a message that she's part of the team, the family's on board, and that she's got his back. She's there.
All right, here we go.
So,
back to the phones. Lines are jammed. We go to Jay in Castle Rock. You're with Dr. Joondeph, Peter Boyles. It's a Saturday. Good morning.
Well, good morning. Fabulous information, Dr. Joondeph, Peter. May I say one thing about Eastern Bloc women? You don't mess with them. That's their President Trump's wife. We now have, let me just give you two things to react. Everything you've said, I'm succinct and absolutely verbatim. We now have two legal alien women in the White House of different faction, and J.D. Vance's wife is brilliant, and they are legal immigrants, and they are very successful, and they are very wealthy. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting too. I hadn't put that together too.
Both the media has no distinction between legal and illegal immigration. So in the eyes of whether it's 9 News or CNN or even Fox, you're either pro-immigration or anti-immigration. Well, there's legal and illegal. It's like going grocery shopping. If you go grocery shopping and purchase your groceries, that's legal and appropriate. If you go grocery shopping and don't, that's illegal and called shoplifting. And they make no distinction on the immigration front. But yes, the two,
muddy the waters.
The first and second lady are both successful, accomplished, legal immigrants to the United States.
Vance's wife is brilliant.
Yeah. They met at Yale Law School. Yeah. She, I think, clerked for Kavanaugh, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, a couple other points. I'd love to, Dan, as long as you like, there's two other points. This gentleman, and I'll just say that just left the White House loosely, started a war. They moved billions of dollars from here to other countries. Our laws matter not one iota. What is international law? We have Hague. We have a lot of things that our allies can enforce. And I do believe, I'm not going to say for sure, that possibly the facilities in Ukraine were damaged to cover his own misdealings by his conversations about you're not going to get the $1 billion until you get rid of the prosecutors. So that being said, he can do all the pardoning he wants. He's not president anymore.
Well, that pivots back to Fauci. There are 30-something U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine, and I'm not making that up. Victoria Nuland at State Department admitted that in Senate testimony to Marco Rubio, and you can go look that up. And these biolabs, who knows what they had going on with genetic weapons against Russians, with COVID, with who knows? We don't know. So it's all speculation. But why does the U.S. need biolabs in another country other than to do gain-of-function research and other things that are illegal in the United States? And Hunter Biden's company was funding them. And if Fauci was involved and he was overseeing all this, Russia has hinted at international tribunals and trials for Fauci, and pardons don't protect them.
But one thing to remember in terms of policies of this country is we had these black gang prisons right after the 9/11 attacks, and they were run by Poles, Lithuanians, Egyptians.
Sure, we have black sites for prisons and for biolabs. We have biolabs in dozens of countries, Nigeria, countries in Asia. Why does the U.S. need biolabs in other countries, just like prisons, other than to do what they're not allowed to do here?
But that's where Bush and Cheney got the lies, is they beat these people into telling them lies. Then they told
they got
lies.
The information they wanted and justified.
That's even John McCain said that. He said, eventually you're going to tell them yes.
No, well, they got the Patriot Act that got weaponized against political opponents. So look at all they accomplished.
What they did. I know, I agree. Thanks for a good call. We go to Andy. Andy, you're on a radio show. Good morning.
Morning. Just a couple of things. You know, I'm amazed at how many articles I've read where the Democrats still don't understand why they lost. Because truthfully, what it was the economy. Period. I mean, every time somebody walks out with a bag of groceries and it's $80, people are like, this is making life hard. And so I'm concerned that Trump could fall into the same category. And I think we're on a precipice of people just having had enough. I think the Luigi thing isn't over. I think people, as they continue to see these wealthy pieces, and yet eggs are $13 a carton, is going to make people nuts. And when you're doing things like renaming stuff, that's nonsense. I would say less than 1% of the population cares about renaming things. And in the meantime, you have 3 billionaires who are all basically autistic standing behind you. And if you still don't get gas to go down because you're upsetting the Canadians in that pipeline, the pendulum will swing so far to the left the next election. I think people are going to be frustrated. So I think that needs to be addressed.
Oh, absolutely. Trump needs to get things under control. And much of this starts with government printing and spending money. The quantitative easing that started back in 2009, 2010, whenever it was, you can't add trillions of dollars to the money supply and not get inflation. And they kept interest rates artificially low, and now the chickens are coming home to roost.
And
they have to cut spending. They have to reduce the money supply. It's as simple as that.
I also disagree with your statement about people don't care about names and renames, and they were done by bureaucrats. They were just simply done by a charge that this, and I mentioned this at a conversation with some people. Stephen Foster, when I'm a kid growing up in Pittsburgh, Stephen Foster wrote the Old Kentucky Home, and all those songs from post-antebellum and pre-antebellum America. And there was a bronze of Stephen Foster, and I used to fight when I was a kid, and I'd go to the fight gym, walk by the bronze of Stephen Foster. They took it down.
I still think the way people are looking at their lives and the inequality piece, like for me, I would say I'm a very conservative individual, and I am beyond annoyed by the pardons. And I'm going to be hard pressed to walk into a jury room when I get called for jury duty and not go, I'm going to count every person in here that's middle to lower middle class guilty, especially when Trump and Biden went nuts on pardons. Like it fractures our justice system in such a bad way that I think most average people care more about the inequalities in their face every day now versus Mount McKinley.
Donald Trump issued presidential pardons for 1,500 people who were involved in the January 6th attack. And those pardons included, and this is the part I think you're talking about, 250 people who were convicted of assaults having attacked police with makeshift weapons.
I'm not positive on this. I think a lot were commutations of sentences, so they're not technically pardons. They're out with time served. But yeah, January 6th needs a good audit as well. And Jim Jordan and the Judiciary Committee will be doing that. A lot of evidence was withheld. And who orchestrated it and how many feds? The Inspector General admitted to over 30 feds in the crowd that were instigating things. That was from Michael Horowitz's report. What's the truth about it? And a lot of people were held in detention for 4 years without trial. And the Constitution says, I believe the Sixth Amendment, you're entitled to a speedy trial. And putting people in a gulag for 4 years without a trial, that's abusive. There needs to be a good audit on the whole thing.
I think the bigger piece is what Biden did with it. I just think it adds to it slightly with just getting like inundated with it. The typical American is like, here we go, just letting our buddies off again. But it leaves a worse taste in your mouth when it really feels criminal with like the Hunter and Biden's brother and all these others. And it gives you a sick feeling about your justice system that's part of it. I think the January 6th thing is a small piece. I just think it adds to it.
Well, a lot of factions will be emboldened by the online chat groups. And I got to get a life, but I watch and read the Proud Boys. of all people. That what's this guy? And Enrique Terrio is his last name. Yeah, and was retribution. They were happy. I don't know what you do with that, but 250 people were really convicted of assaults on cops, and in my mind, they were trying to overthrow the constitutionality of what the country should be about. Earlier, Doctor, you said about I think you said get it behind us, and so other things can be done.
Well, it's not. I didn't say get it behind us, but have a proper investigation. A January 6th committee that looks at everything, not just evidence that's favorable to the case you want to make. There was a lot of evidence that wasn't released. There's videos that exculpatory evidence, and you can't convict somebody. It's called the Brady rule. You can't withhold exculpatory evidence. You had a stacked jury. You had a judge that was going to put everybody in jail. It was looking from the outside in. It was a rigged system. And who was involved? Was Nancy Pelosi involved? Was Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell? Who knows who all was involved? Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's look at everything.
Well, Schumer didn't hold. They didn't hold rallies. I mean,
Antifa killed people, and BLM in the summer of 2020. There were riots and people killed, property damaged. Very few, if any, went to prison.
Doesn't make it right.
Well, it doesn't make it right, but it's a two-tiered system.
No,
you have grandma walking on the Capitol grounds, sitting in D.C. jail for 4 years. That's not right. You have people praying outside of an abortion clinic, and they're in jail for years. That's not right. That's freedom of speech.
They got pardoned too. Did you see that?
Yeah. Well,
Trump pardoned them.
They should. You can protest. Go threaten Supreme Court justices' homes, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, and nothing happens.
We saw it here.
The feds don't investigate.
We saw it here.
It's if that's freedom of speech. But
that was under Biden. It's a new day.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
What I'm asking for is fairness and equal justice under the law, and a fair accounting of these things, and look at everything, not just look at it one-sided.
Caller, take the last comment, if you will.
Well, I appreciate it. I just am hoping that people can feel that, like, all the other stuff makes you feel good. Like the transgender stuff make people go, "This is crazy. I'm living in a simulation. This is insane."
Mm-hmm.
And the border issues, as long as that connects to me being able to feel like my life's getting better.
Yep.
If I walk into an emergency room, I don't want to be standing in line because there's way too many people that we can deal with that aren't American citizens, or go to the grocery store and being able to buy eggs because beef is too expensive, and go, "Hey, somebody's got to help us out here."
Good call.
That's the basic stuff that the average person relates to. Most people don't care what the mountain's called or what's going on in D.C. and trials and pardons. It's the grocery store. It's gas prices. It's interest rates.
Wallet.
It's putting food on the table.
Sure, no,
Talk to working moms single moms that have to support a household, and put food on the table every day. That's what they care about.
What was the great line? It's the economy, stupid.
Exactly.
Hang on, Dr. Joondeph is here. Danny Kaplis' law firm. Just go past it. Okay, we'll catch it up on the other side. 710 KNUS. We have one line opens, first time since I think the show started. 710 KNUS on a Saturday morning. It is cold outside. Roads are bad. Stay close to a warm radio. We're back right after this.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Italy's highest court has upheld a slander conviction against Amanda Knox for accusing a man they say is innocent for the murder of her British roommate in 2007. The trial captivated the nation on both sides of the Atlantic. Knox had appealed the conviction based on a European Court of Human Rights ruling that said her rights had been violated by police and their failure to provide a lawyer and adequate translator during a long night of questioning just days after Meredith Kercher was murdered. The man they say she wrongly accused, Patrick Lumumba, said that Knox will have to live with the verdict for the rest of her life. President Donald Trump is saying that he plans on meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin very soon to talk about ending the war in Ukraine.
I think Russia should want to make a deal. Maybe they want to make a deal. I think from what I hear, Putin would like to see me, and we'll meet as soon as we can. I'd meet immediately. Every day we don't meet, soldiers are being killed in the battlefield.
You said that Ukraine's ready to make a deal. Did President Zelensky tell you that personally?
Yeah, sure. He's ready to negotiate a deal.
His remarks come a day after Trump said he would likely impose new sanctions, taxes, and tariffs on Russia unless Putin struck a deal with him soon to end the conflict. Formula One drivers could be suspended from racing or lose championship points for swearing or making political statements under new rules. In Dallas, Christina Wild, Salem News Channel.
Morning, everybody. 710 KNUS on a Saturday, January 25, 2025. I'm Peter Boyles. Lines are jammed. Dr. Joondeph is in studio. As I was beginning to tell you when we took the turn, I apologize. It's about Dan Kaplis and Kaplis' law firm. Danny suggests, and I'll tell you, I go with him. I mention all the time we had some issues in our family that I was working with Danny, and I went to him, and he became the attorney, and he was just guided everybody through it. Because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Kaplis is, we've talked about his dad was a cop and talked about his mom and how he grew up. And Danny's believed to be the only attorney in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar jury verdicts in Colorado crash cases. And Dan's also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. He is my friend. And his law firm, now they're partners with the Nuggets and the Avs. Dan Kaplis Law's serious firm, serious cases. Danny accepts righteous cases. And just make the phone call and talk to him. 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551. Or hit dankaplislaw.com. It's CAPLISlaw.com. And he'll represent and really, really, really will do the job and tell you where things stand. 303-770-5551. In studio, Dr. Brian Joondeph, and we're talking about so many different issues. But the first week of this man's presidency, he has shook people up, and the country, I think, had fallen onto so many bad times. And there is a theme that runs through history is all empires fail, and the country, and I think he's talking about pulling us back into our borders, bringing the means of production back into the country, doing away with the insanity that has appeared. Because if you have the 8 years of George Bush and Dick Cheney, these are Republicans and Democrats alike. Your thoughts?
Sure. The 8 years of George Bush and then 8 years of Barack Obama. And look at what Bush gave us. He gave us the Patriot Act to give us unprecedented ability to spy. And it was intentioned to be on foreigners, potential terrorists. And Obama turned that inward and weaponized it against the American people and political opponents. So it's
more than that, the Bush-Cheney foreign policy.
Well, sure. And the endless wars, the making a mess of the Middle East, and it's being repeated now. Look at Ukraine and how many hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian men are dead or displaced, and how much money we've spent. We can't secure our border, but we're securing the border of Israel, Ukraine, South Korea, you name it. A lot of countries were taking care of their borders, leaving ours wide open, letting anybody and everybody in to cause mayhem in America.
What do you think the purpose of that is?
Open borders?
Yeah.
A couple. One is, I think Democrats need voters, and you take these illegal migrants and you put them in red states or blue states. You can change the congressional apportionment, get more seats potentially, electoral votes. The other is more sinister. It's a Cloward-Piven strategy of creating chaos. It's what's happened to the economy, a giant welfare state. A welfare state and an open border is, they're incompatible. That's a recipe for disaster. And it's to overwhelm the system. That's what Cloward-Piven's strategy is.
And
it's a couple of Columbia professors, and it's basically to overwhelm and destroy the system so you can rebuild something, the New World Order.
Eventually.
Whatever the New World Order is going to look like. But you destroy the current system and then rebuild in Barack Obama's vision or Klaus Schwab's vision, George Soros's vision.
Yeah, the anarchists knew that if you destroyed the family structure,
very systematic.
Yeah, incredibly systematic. There is a plan.
Well, you have a welfare system replacing a at-home dad, and that started long ago. You look in the 50s of
we talked about
black households, for example. Vast majority were two-parent households. Yeah. Now, maybe it's a third.
Yeah, we talked about Johnson a minute ago. Let's go back. I think we go to Carly. The lines are jammed. Carly, you're on a radio show with Dr. Brian Joondeph.
Your guest is one of the best people I've ever heard on the radio in my life, and I wish he had his own show.
You don't know him.
I don't have to know him. I go by what he's saying, and I wish he had his own show, although he's probably not interested in that. However, I agree with every single thing you're saying. And Peter, when you refer to President Trump as a politician, that is so vague. That is so far down the line from what this man is.
Actually,
he is, first of all, one of the strongest men I have ever seen in my life.
Ma'am, would you hang on? If
you just don't drag on and on and let our callers talk.
I've said that the thing is Donald Trump is not a politician.
You just said he was a few minutes ago.
Well, no, I did not.
Yes, you did. Go back and listen to your own show.
As a Politico, Donald Trump is not a politician.
No, he's not.
Okay, then we agree. Go ahead.
He is a game changer. He is a Renaissance man as far as I'm concerned, and he loves this country. I could not believe what this man went through over the past 2 years at the shortest time period. He is so strong. I was blown away by everything he did this week. And I work in the oil and gas industry, so I'm majorly drill, baby, drill. And when you would give the analogy over the past month of him being a plumber and going and hitting on the guy's wife, Do you think that we would have the country that we love or that I love, except for the past 4 years?
Let me explain to the people what I said. I said,
I know what you said.
well,
I've
I
heard
know,
it over
ma'am.
and
I'd
over.
like to say it so other people can
Okay, go
put you on here. I said, here you are in your house, and I'll aim this at the doctor. Every single pipe you have is broken. The dishwasher is overflowing. The sinks are backed up. The toilets are flooded. Everything is coming apart. Your hot water heater. Now you got a guy sitting on the couch next to you. He's the best plumber in the world. He's got 5 guys in the truck that are the best 4 other plumbers. Now, if you hire him and he's going to do it, he's going to fix it, but he's also possibly going to hit on your old lady and he might take money out of your wallet, but he's going to fix it. Now, you can wait for some politically correct plumber to get there who will be there 3-4 hours later. Your entire water system will eat your house alive. My question is, who do you hire? Do you hire the plumber that's sitting next to you, or do you wait for the politically correct plumber who's 4 or 5 hours away?
I'd use a different analogy.
Are you insinuating he's a thief?
No,
too?
ma'am. It's a hypothetical question. Do you understand the difference?
Yeah, I do. And you just said, and he takes money out of your pocket.
That's right.
I'd use a different analogy. I'd say the plumber that's, sloppy and overweight and curses and has the big plumber's crack, and he gets in and he gets the job done fast and at a good price and no problem.
But you got the guy. I'm pushing it on the edges.
I know, and I don't think Trump is. Trump's younger days, he chased women. Yeah, he was a playboy. He was a Democrat in those days too. He was a reality star. I don't think he's not that anymore.
It was a question that was open-ended. It could be interpreted any way people wanted to see it.
Now we want somebody that fixes it, and that's
my point.
Trump is an absolute fixer.
That's my point.
Can I ask you a question, Peter?
Sure.
Do you think that we would have this country, excusing the past 4 years, that I love, if it wasn't for our founding fathers, who several had mistresses, Ben Franklin, owned slaves, had children with slaves? We wouldn't.
Benjamin Franklin did not own slaves.
I didn't say he did. I said he had several mistresses.
Dr. Franklin was great. Yeah.
I don't excuse President Trump for any affairs he may have had. That's between him and Melania. But I can tell you one thing. He didn't rape E. Jean Carroll. I worked in rape crisis centers. He did not rape that woman. He did not sexually assault that freak. She is a weirdo. But like I said, that's between them. And as far as Melania Trump goes, she is a class act. And I watched yesterday, and he actually said, he told Melania, you don't have to come. She wanted to come. And she is setting a standard for first ladies that Jill Biden could never achieve. Okay, I've had my say.
You happy?
I am kind of happy. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. All right. Anything you want to say about that?
No.
The plumber thing, by the way, is people have gotten really mad about it. It's a hypothetical. It's a philosophical question. It's platonic. It doesn't.
I'll just throw back what the media said during Bill Clinton days of what one does in their private life has no bearing on their role as a president. And that was their defense of Bill Clinton. Oh, these are private matters. We should ignore them. So if you're going to apply that standard to Bill Clinton, then you apply it to everybody. I don't think Trump is philandering, fooling around. What he did in his younger days, so what? We probably all did things in our younger days that we're not proud of. We're judging him on now.
No,
what he's doing.
We've run the scale on presidents. Most historians believe that FDR's mistress was in the house with him when he died. Jack Kennedy, enough said. You get on a list of Lyndon Johnson. I mean, while they were in office, they were who they were.
Yeah, Secret Service covered it all up and ran interference.
But they also had a press corps. Jack Kennedy's press corps was Jack Kennedy.
Right.
World War II guys. They were probably doing the same things.
Trump has a hostile press corps.
There you go.
He always had, and he always will. But he's playing them like fiddles. It's masterful to watch. Trump, no, he's not a politician, but he is an entertainer, and he's a funny guy. When he gets up and does his rallies, he's funny. He could do stand-up comedy. He understands entertaining, keeping your audience engaged, and he understands branding. One thing he's very successful at in all of his campaigns, from low energy Jeb to crooked Hillary to Little Marco. Little Marco's his Secretary of State now. So he's good at branding, and he understands that. And that's from his time doing television. Actually, I think it's the way he grew up. Yeah, well, he's got the New York bravado. I grew up in New Jersey. I know that kind of attitude. It's the talk, it's hyperbole, it's exaggeration. With Trump, everything's the best. Well, if you take that literally, you're missing the boat. This is how people talk. This golf course is the best. This building's the best. This hotel, that's the biggest, the best. Yeah. That's how he is, and that's part of his shtick. No, and that's part of ultimately Donald Trump's success is going to be what he accomplishes in these 4 years. He's off to a great start, but the proof is in the pudding with anybody, politician, not politician, anybody that's in elective office. It's outcomes that matter, not their talk. They've got to perform. To me, politicians are Joe Biden's a politician. Well, none of them do what they say. Trump is doing what he says, and you judge somebody by they run for office, and once elected, they stick to their guns and do what they promise. I think this city right now needs a Donald Trump. Oh, absolutely. Denver does. So does New York, Chicago, and L.A. Yeah. And maybe when people see how this works, they're going to step in and say, it's time. A guy like Trump, and again, there's major problems, but again, what you say is true. It's like George Patton was not by any stretch of the imagination, the finest man that ever walked the earth. But when it came, and that's why Ike saves his career after slapping the GI. Ike saves him. And then he goes on to make a speech about the British and the Americans are going to run the world. Ike saves him. Why does Ike save him? Because he knows. Well, he knows what needs to be done and is serious about it. Rudy Giuliani did that for New York when it was a absolute dump after David Dinkins and crime, and he had his broken windows policy, and criminals were getting arrested, and all of a sudden New York had a renaissance. When I was a kid, going into Central Park was no man's land. We went to a few concerts in Central Park when I was in high school, and parents were worried. Everybody's, you can't go to Central Park. That changed. But that's Giuliani now is so over the hill. But well, I'm talking about when he was mayor, and that was a few decades ago, and he really cleaned things up. And most of the big cities in the U.S., yes, they do need a Trump figure. And when elections are coming up, hopefully there are like-minded businessmen or whoever that decide to run on that platform. This shows that the MAGA agenda can win. It resonates with people, and it can be applied to cities. It should be. Or states, governors. And you watch. I mean, I think that there is going to be, one way. Colorado may be an exception for one variety of reasons, but other states. We can talk about that, but one way or the other. And it really is too early to say this is the game changer, but it's starting off, right foot forward. And hang on. The music's in the background. Dr. Brian Joondeph, your calls right after this.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump plans to appeal the temporary block that a federal judge put on his executive order that ended birthright citizenship for illegal migrants who have babies in the United States. The case was brought by the Democrat states of Washington, Arizona, Illinois, and Oregon, who argued that the move was unconstitutional.
Obviously, we'll appeal it. They put it before a certain judge in Seattle, I guess, right? And there's no surprises with that judge.
House Speaker Mike Johnson held a signing ceremony for the passage of the Laken-Riley Act. The ceremony came after the House voted 263 to 156 to approve the measure, with 46 Democrats joining all Republicans in favor.
My colleagues did extraordinary work in Georgia. All the Georgia delegation worked so hard on this. This is the right thing to do. it's a really important moment for the country, and it's always good when the right thing is also the popular thing. And this is what the American people demand and deserve. They want accountability. They want us to address the human catastrophe that has come from the broken, wide open border.
President Donald Trump is saying that he plans on meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin very soon to talk about ending the war in Ukraine.
I think Russia should want to make a deal. Maybe they want to make a deal. I think from what I hear, Putin would like to see me, and we'll meet as soon as we can.
In Dallas, Christina Ohio, Salem News Channel.
And it's cold outside, and it's Saturday, and I'm Peter Boyles along with Dr. Brian Joondeph, 710 KNUS. I overlooked you, Don. You waited. I do apologize, and they kept me, and they said, wait a minute, Don's on line one. How long has he been there? I apologize. Don, you're on a radio show with Dr. Joondeph. Good morning.
We set a new record, Peter. 1 hour, 26 minutes.
I won't do that.
Before it was an hour 15, I think.
I'll never let that happen again.
Hey, I'm listening to you either way. Number one, really good to hear Dr. Joondeph. Been a while.
It has been.
Really glad you had him on. Couple real quick things. One, 4 years of being held in jail, I liken that akin to torture. You imagine they lock you up for 4 years and there's no movement? I mean, that's absurd. The one I really want to talk to you about is the JFK release. How deep do you think they'll go with the information they provide?
I downloaded this, and the headline is, "Here's what long secret JFK MLK Jr. files may or may not reveal." And I'm going to try and do this next week. But as you know, the Kennedys are at each other. I don't know if you've seen this one, Doc, or not, where the Kennedys are really up.
They're not happy with
No.
RFK Jr.
No, on a lot of levels. But one of the things that this guy writes, the minute the Kennedy assassination comes up, 9 out of 10, people know a little bit about it. But what about those documents? What are they hiding? And the theory is, again, I'm reading this, you're holding on to these secret files for 60 years, you must be hiding something. There's a book entitled Case Closed. I'm not a fan of the book. Another book called Killing the Dream, and we've talked about these books. But anyone who thinks the files will definitely reveal once and for all who killed John Kennedy, his brother Bob, and Dr. King, they're in for a disappointment. I think people are looking for something bigger, a gotcha moment, a smoking document. Here's how we killed Jack Kennedy. It's not going to be there. The JFK book details, etc. Let's see. I'm a like I said, it's been promised before, has it not?
This is the closest we have gotten. Trump signed an executive order. John Ratcliffe was just confirmed as the head of CIA. We're as close as we have been and we will ever be. We'll see who the DNI is, if it's Tulsi Gabbard, but this stuff has to be released. But it's also the deep state, and the deep state is deep for a reason. And even Trump will have
they're going to
a
release
challenge.
this. If they're going to release this stuff, then, like I said, how deep are they going to go? How far back? The players. You and I talked the other day, Peter, about the guy who called who didn't have a clue about some of the people. Dorothy Kilgallen, for one, and you talked about Mary Pinchot, and you go back to Marilyn Monroe and all the cover-ups and all the people, and the handler for the CIA, which had its separate affairs going on with
the mob.
Jack and Robert Kennedy.
Yeah, the mob.
You know, Robert Kennedy has a lot to pay for with his brother getting killed and his association with the CIA. Those guys are trying to snuff out Castro for a few years.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. I've read way too much just like you. I'm going to throw out names and people are going to go, what? But I did see a couple blurbs about Kilgallen. They're looking at making some type of documentary. And I saw another one the other day was, who is Mary Pinchot?
She was a lover of Jack Kennedy.
I know that, but I saw a blurb that was this question.
She was killed
Who is Mary Pinchot?
She was killed in the park. She was murdered.
She was on the towpath. She was on the towpath.
Yeah.
They blamed the black guy.
Yeah. No,
her ex-husband was over in England. I mean, that was all CIA. It could have been Angleton that maybe pulled the trigger. All that people was.
One of the things that, as what I've been able to read, is William Manchester, who becomes sort of the poet laureate for the Kennedys. And he had notes, lengthy notes, interviewing Jackie Kennedy. And remember when Manchester, who is a brilliant historian, now they've suppressed the Jackie Kennedy notes. What Manchester and Jackie Kennedy talked about.
And he mentioned the affair she had with Bobby after the death of John.
And Frank Sinatra, and the list goes on. But could there be new photos or JFK autopsy stuff? But
we'll never see them. We'll never see them.
But Doc and I were talking off air about RFK Jr. I don't know if you saw that interview. I watched it 5 or 6 times because it's so significant. The interviewer says to him, "Did the CIA kill your uncle?" And I'm paraphrasing. He said, "Yes." I mean, it was like you're telling me, Peter, it's 10 to 12. And what the CIA did in the world in my lifetime is unforgivable. Yet
Do you think there was a separate part of the CIA involved?
Oh, absolutely.
And we think that same part of the CIA was.
The CIA has deep tentacles, and who knows if we'll find out everything. But again, this is as close as we're going to see in our lifetimes to getting some answers.
On Dr. King, and Dr. King's life is now in the open, and people are legitimately talking about it. But the depths of the government's, at that time, and you're right about Bush, that was illegal surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
What they did,
oh, yeah.
and the FBI considered Dr. King a public enemy at the time. And there's all these stories about they're bringing in the tapes and all the stuff. They taped his bed springs and they taped everything that they could. And then they brought in some stuff that said that he hadn't done it. And I forget who it was, Clyde Tolson. Well, it might have been Clyde Tolson, who came out and said, this is not the report that the director wants. And they did another one.
Yeah, the director got a lot of what he wanted, how he wanted it, that's for sure. Well, guys, I got to jump. Dr. Joondeph, great to hear it, talk to you, and listen to you.
Thank you, brother.
Really enjoyed David Smith the other day, Peter. You got the A team for people on your show. Bring in Fortune. William Fortune.
I promise I will. Thank you. But all that kind of stuff, the FBI report.
Well, the dirty tricks haven't stopped. They spied on Trump's campaign and transition in 2016. Used FISA warrants against Carter Page and Papadopoulos, and used that with their powers to spy on everybody. But I'm hopeful that we can get some clarity on a lot of things that have been covered up, from Epstein to 9/11 to the assassinations to COVID to all sorts of things that have been really suppressed by the government.
What's really interesting, or at least to me, that in the late 60s and early 70s, the kind of charges that are being made right now by the conservative element about the FBI and the CIA and the so-called establishment now are being said by conservatives. It's as though the lamp got lit, and the things that we would read about the CIA being involved, the CIA was not chartered to spy on the American people. Its job was...
It's forbidden to. Not only is it not chartered, it's forbidden from any domestic surveillance.
But what happened?
Well, they contract out with the Five Eyes group. You've got Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. They're not subject to CIA rules. They can spy and give the information to the U.S. So it's just an end around.
And that's David Ellsberg and what happened. Mm-hmm. And the same thing we were talking earlier about the so-called black gangs and black prisons.
I wrote an article a few years ago about how the left in the country has become the man. If you remember the 60s, the protests, they're protesting against the FBI, big government, the man. Yeah. Well, guess who the man is now? The man is now Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and their agencies. Yes. And the left is defending the CIA, the FBI.
Yes.
What a difference a few decades made.
Sit still. We'll come back to that final hour. Dr. Brian Joondeph, the man, Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS. We do this, we come back, and I say good afternoon. In the next hour, lines are jammed. We'll take your calls. Stay right here. Now we say good afternoon, everyone. It is a Saturday, January 25, 2025, 710 KNUS. Lines are jammed. We've been full lines pretty much the entire morning because of our guest, Dr. Brian Joondeph. It is going to be 25, and I don't know if we get there, 10 degrees tonight, 29 on Sunday, 7 degrees Sunday night, and on Monday, 40 degrees. We're getting all kinds of stuff about spelling your name and looking you up on the internet. So would you do that, Doctor?
Sure. Spelling Joondeph. So,
what's a derivation? We were talking about that.
Family originally came from Russia. My mother's side from Ukraine, my father's side from Russia, or what was Ukraine.
Yeah.
It was countries shifted, borders shifted, but they eventually migrated through Holland.
Wow.
Name went from Russian alphabet to Western alphabet and finalized in Ellis Island, and it came out Joondeph. That wasn't the Russian name, but I'm on Ancestry.com, and I've looked up, we have ship manifests of my mother and her grandmother coming over and from Liverpool and ending up in Ellis Island.
Who was the first one to get here?
Would be my grandfather, Charles, and he came to the U.S.
What did he do?
He was a pharmacist.
Wow.
And my father was a pharmacist.
I didn't know that.
And I have 3 brothers. Everybody's a doctor of some sort.
See, I think smart stays. I do. And my family, it's the exact opposite.
My kids, none are a doctor. So they got smarter.
Yeah. Well, my kids never want anything to do with this. So because they understand. But
yeah, the name is, it's a complicated name, but easy to pronounce. June rhymes with moon so that's easy, and the PH is an F sound, like phonic. So
where's the best place to read you?
Anything I write, I put on my Substack. I think it's called Dr. J's Substack.
Okay.
I write weekly for American Thinker and probably a couple times a month for Rasmussen reports. And at the bottom of any of my articles has LinkedIn page, Twitter, Truth Social, wherever else I am. I don't have a website per se, so I use Substack to accumulate, and please subscribe, and then you'll get notified anytime I publish. And I even do travel articles. I do a lot of travel.
I know you do.
Write a travel column for The Villager, which is newspaper in Arapahoe County, and I'm starting to put my travel articles up. So that's a big part of my life outside of work.
When or if it did your politics change, or have you always been thinking this way?
I've always been conservative. My parents were conservative.
Okay.
They turned me on to Rush Limbaugh. He was kind of new, and I'd hear my mother saying, "Oh, you got to listen to Rush, and I did. And listening to him, parts of him almost every day for a couple of decades, he was very articulate about conservatism.
Saved his business.
I would love to hear what he has to say about the last 4 years and everything going on.
No, he
was a big influence. But I grew up. I remember the Watergate era and all of that. So I've always liked politics. I voted for Ronald Reagan when I think that was when I started college, or maybe it was medical school. I don't remember. But I was a big Reagan fan. Loved his recent movie.
How would you stack Reagan up against Trump, or Trump against Reagan?
It's a very different time.
Oh, absolutely.
In Reagan's era,
the Cold War.
Reagan, sure. I'm thinking of their coverage. In Reagan's era, it was the big 3 networks. There was no cable news, no social media, and I think Reagan was a smoother version of Donald Trump, but similarly funny, similarly engaging. Trump is a very engaging person. People that have talked to him personally say that. And Trump is funny. He's a funny guy and can crack jokes, and he could do stand-up comedy. You watch him at his rallies. And Reagan very much the same. Reagan was just a little smoother at it.
Reagan was an actor.
Yeah. Well, Reagan was from Illinois, not from Queens.
Trump from Idaho. Right.
Eureka, Illinois, or maybe that's where he went to college.
Yeah.
So Illinois, Iowa, but
Iowa, not Idaho. Iowa.
Yeah. Trump grew up in New York City, so he's got that demeanor. It's a very different personality.
And his father is two different kinds of fathers.
Yes, but they're similar in their core beliefs about fighting back against the swamp. It wasn't called the swamp in Reagan's days, but
the swamp's new.
Well, you had a military-industrial complex in
shadow
Reagan's
government.
day. You had a shadow government. This is post the assassinations. I think you had a weaponized government, and even there's some good interviews. Tucker did an interview with somebody about Watergate, and Woodward wasn't a journalist. He was a naval intelligence officer and got placed in there, and the burglars, most of them had ties to the CIA. It's there's a lot of, did the deep state take Nixon out? Was he a threat to the status quo? Did they do to him what the deep state tried to do to Trump with spying on him and Russiagate and all the lawfare? So there are a lot of similarities, but it's a different time. Trump has the rallies, he has the social media, he has these social media influencers on his team, but they're at their core, they're similar.
The way you were talking about Melania, there was no stronger supporter, I believe, of her husband than Nancy Reagan.
Absolutely, and she was fierce. I don't know if you've seen the Reagan movie. That's the only time
I haven't seen it.
Only time I've been to a movie theater in probably 5 years, and it's a great movie and makes I think a fair showing, and Nancy was very loyal and supportive, and his biggest cheerleader. And I don't know what's behind the scenes with Donald and Melania, but I think she's a supporter, and she went very public on it, and she's going to go scorched earth on anybody that's in their way.
Lou Cannon's book on Reagan, and they talked about in the 8 years Ronald Reagan and George Bush, not one time did Nancy Reagan invite the Bushes upstairs for dinner in the White House. Not once. And so when Ronald Reagan's time was up, George Bush is now president, and Barbara Bush said, well, this is going to be a kinder and gentler administration.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy said, kinder and gentler than who?
Sure. That was a dig on...
That's who.
Well, Reagan picked Bush because that's who the establishment wanted, and that was how he was going to get the nomination.
Yeah,
I don't think he had much of a choice in picking.
See, that's the part that you're talking about.
And I think Trump, likewise, he had to make nice with the establishment in 2016, and he picked Mike Pence, who was an establishment figure. He didn't want anything to do with Pence. So second term, he's got J.D. Vance. Is J.D. Vance an establishment guy? Hell no. Hell no.
Not at all. Not at all.
So it's sometimes you have to play nice with the party, and Trump did that. He picked nominees that were going to get confirmed. He picked Reince Priebus from the RNC. He tried to make nice. He thought, I won. I'm going to play nice with my party. They backstabbed him. They didn't. Paul Ryan opposed him. They didn't do anything he wanted done.
Is the Republican Party at this point what?
It's Donald Trump's party.
And
otherwise, they're, to use the pejorative term, rhinos. But it's ones that are the establishment. They're not on board. And
who are the Democrats now? I believe that they're almost Trotskyists. They're almost
they're communists or socialists. They're crazy. You've got people like AOC as respected members of the party, and your squad, and Jamie Raskin, and you got absolute crazy people.
But they're almost like a British Labour Party after the Second World War. That was precisely that. They were Trotskyists,
and they're unappealing. They're not fun. Yeah, they appeal to a portion of society that's like-minded, but they got trounced.
Oh, so
their message is not selling.
What will they now do, the Democrats?
If they're smart, they move to the center.
Can they?
I doubt they can.
See, I agree.
They're going to move further to the left because you've got a lot of people that say you lost because you weren't far enough to the left.
That's out there.
You need the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren wing. Well, you do that, and it's going to lose. It's like the Hitler salute. They've tried that, and they're pulling it on Elon Musk now. That raises his arm in the air. It's you're Hitler. Well, that didn't work in the election, and I encourage the Democrats to keep doing that because it's falling on deaf ears. The only people interested are CNN and MSNBC panels and the editorial board of the New York Times. Other than that, nobody cares. Nobody views it as a Nazi salute, and they're just making themselves look silly.
Donald Trump has spent this first week in the White House, back in the White House, introducing so many policy changes, it's been hard to keep up. It really has been. I mean, you every day, every hour seems to be another turn, another change.
It's overwhelming force. Do you remember the first Gulf War?
Of course.
Led by George H.W.
Shock and
Bush,
awe.
we were talking.
Shock and awe.
They spent 9 months building a coalition, getting the military there. And when they hit, Iraq couldn't do anything. It was absolute shock and awe. And that's what Trump is doing. So while the CNN panel is worried about Nazi salutes or, what Melania wore or nonsense like that, Trump is signing executive orders. He's closing the border. He's sending the Marines to the border. He's renaming the Gulf of Mexico. He's talking to Denmark about Greenland. He sent Marco Rubio to Panama as his first overseas trip. You don't think Trump is serious about the Panama Canal? Why would he send Rubio down there? First thing, of all the things going on in the world, first stop, Panama. Strategic importance.
That's also going to be a tough one.
Trump is on the road. He's been to North Carolina. He's been to California, making Newsom look like a clown. He shook his hand to the point where Newsom probably is in a cast by now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Look at all he's getting done. And his nominees are getting confirmed. I don't care if it's close. If JD had to cast a tie-breaking vote, there are 3 Republicans that went against him. It's not going to be particularly good for Mitch McConnell and his in-laws. Let me guess.
Back to the phones.
The Chinese shipping company.
Oh, yes.
Trump is watching all that. He says he doesn't care as long as he got him confirmed, but Trump is, he's got a list and he's checking it twice and who's naughty and nice.
Jim, you're on a radio show with Dr. Brian Joondeph. Good evening. Good afternoon.
Well, good evening. Hey, good show today. I'm enjoying it, but I really like the 2 political party system because it somewhat restricts the future spending that these people do with our tax dollars.
Just a quick question. How has that worked out? We have a 2-party system and we have $36 trillion in debt with $1 trillion in interest payments every year. And the debt to GDP ratio is over 100. And that's not good. So how is the 2-party system doing on that front since you brought it up?
We've had unfettered spending. In fact, from 2000 until 2006, there was not a single spending bill that was vetoed under our conservatives. And that was not 2-party representation. That was conservative representation. So I actively want 2 political parties going face to face with one another, restricting spending. But no, it hasn't worked out well.
The problem is with the 2 parties we have now, they're more alike than different. It's like the geneticists look at the DNA of an earthworm and say the DNA in an earthworm, 75% of it is the same as a human. So
I've got opposing thumbs.
A boy is a rat.
So we're 70% genetically identical to an earthworm, and the differences are small, but the differences are huge, obviously. I think the Democrats and Republicans are about money, power. The difference is the Republican Party uses money to get power. The Democrats use power to get money. That's the difference.
There was a Frenchman who came to this country. His name was de Tocqueville, Alexis de Tocqueville. De Tocqueville holds up today as well as he held up when he arrived, and he was an observer. And one of de Tocqueville's sprung ideas was, as soon as politicians discover that they can take, and he called it the largesse of the treasury, and spend it on people, they will vote for them.
Well, the people too. Sure. Once the majority are getting something from the government, they will vote to continue that. So I'll throw out something else, a parliamentary system, just so we're talking about it. I'm curious what both of you think. I lived in New Zealand for a couple of years, and I still go back there regularly, and they have a parliamentary system where there are, 8-10 parties, and they all get votes, and you have to put together a majority coalition. So it's not a two-party system. A third party in America is dead on arrival. It won't happen. But in New Zealand or the UK, whatever, the Green Party might be in a coalition with a Conservative Party. You say, how does that work? Well, they make some concessions to each other, but they form a 50+% majority coalition of disparate interess that somehow manage to function and get stuff done. Is that better? I don't know.
We were talking about Winston Churchill when the party dissolves under Neville Chamberlain. And what are we going to do? They don't want Winston Churchill, but they need the agreement is there. We will make Winston Churchill prime minister.
I can't see modern Democrats and Republicans in America compromising on anything.
No.
Look at the Hegseth.
But we don't want them to. We want them going head to head in a balanced fashion. So there's some resistance to the spending of the futures of our children and grandchildren.
Yes, but you still need enough of a coalition to govern. You have a filibuster in the Senate, and unless you get 60 votes, legislation doesn't go anywhere. So what you're saying is perpetual gridlock, and if the government's in perpetual gridlock, they do nothing, which may be a good thing. But there are times where things need to advance. And see how many Democrats are voted for Pete Hegseth? None.
And why would they? I mean, it's the opposing party. I think
how many Republicans voted for Darth Vader, Lloyd Austin, for Secretary of Defense? A number of them did. Maybe 25% opposed, but he had a solid majority. The Democrats are in total opposition mode, and with slim majorities, then you have your McConnells and Murkowskis that, if they decide to be a wrench in the works, Trump doesn't get his nominees. So
they're just lobbyists with red and blue ties on in Congress is all they are.
Well, they're controlled by the lobbyists. The lobbyists write the legislation. The lobbyists, Congress doesn't write any bills themselves.
Tom Tancredo, who's a dear friend.
He's a different animal.
But Tommy said that the worst thing about winning was you had to start immediately fundraising again. And if you go ahead, I'm sorry.
And Donald Trump has to force through any policy he wants done immediately, because within 2 years, he is going to have the utmost resistance. I truly believe right now, Donald Trump, the main thing that he is doing in this nation is he is creating Democratic voters right now. And so in 2 years, those Democratic voters are going to come out just like they did in 2018. And they're going to put a stop to absolutely everything that's going on, because there is no compromise with this man. But there are negatives to this leader as well.
I don't think he's creating Democrat voters. If anything, I think the opposite.
Wow.
You hear former Democrats saying, "Wow, a politician that
much like Ronald Reagan
is doing what he said he would do," and
much like Ronald Reagan.
A lot of Democrats don't like open borders, and they don't like illegal aliens in their cities raping and murdering and robbing people.
We're at our break. Thank you, everybody. Hold on. The other voice is Dr. Brian Joondeph. I'm Peter Boyles. Stay right here. Good afternoon, everyone. It is cold outside. What a great show. Good afternoon, everyone. Snow in the city. It's cold outside. Dr. Joondeph is in studio. Phone number is 303-713-8255. And we have had jammed lines since we kicked this pooch at 9. 710, KNUS Denver's talk station. And the ski resorts are experiencing better snow conditions. It's the perfect time to consider taking your skis, snowboards for a tune, or maybe even getting new gear. The best winter sports equipment. Head over to Larson Ski and Sport, located south of I-70 on Kipling. So whether you're looking to rent or buy equipment, and remember with your kids are little, rent, Larson's got you covered. They're dedicated to providing you with the best skiing experience possible. And I've been representing them for 18, 19 years. And John Marriott and his son Jack now, and Paul, and everyone that is there, they're the best. The convenience of Larson's is unbeatable. Perfect stop on your way up or down the mountain. It's the Kipling exit. So if you're going to go headed up, you're westbound on I-70, get off on the Kipling exit, come down the ramp, and then make a left, turn south, come underneath I-70, come out on the other side, and look to your right. Almost immediately, you'll see a big wooden box building. That's, of course, Larson Ski and Sport. John Marriott and the guys at Larson's, absolute experts at everything you need for winter sports. Stop in today. Tell them I sent you. They're open tomorrow as well. Larson Ski and Sport, south of I-70 on Kipling, 303-423-0654, 303-423-0654. It's LARSON, larsonsport.com. Dr. Joondeph here. We're talking about Greenland and Panama. Again, Donald Trump. What do you do with those?
That's interesting. I think he's very serious. They're talking, start with Greenland. Greenland is of strategic importance because north of Greenland is the Arctic Sea, and the other side of that is kind of Russia and China. So if missiles head our way from either of those places, they'll likely pass over Greenland or nearby. We were talking earlier about a book called Nuclear War.
Yeah.
I highly recommend. It's a hypothetical scenario. This is an aside. Hypothetical scenario of North Korea launching a hydrogen bomb, not an atomic bomb, a hydrogen bomb at Washington, D.C. And it's basically a second-by-second account of what happens. The alerts, and Buckley Air Force Base is alerted by the satellites, and Cheyenne Mountain, so Colorado is features. And the decision making and who does what, and the nuclear football and the president and chain of command and eventual nuclear war and what happens with that. So it's a fun, well, I wouldn't say fun. It's a fascinating read. Yeah. But back to Greenland, Greenland's of strategic importance. Lots of minerals there. And I think Trump is serious. And Trump is a negotiator. When you're negotiating, if you're buying a house, your first offer is a low ball or whatever. Yeah. And then it's back and forth and you reach a compromise. So he's coming out with a strong offer or a strong proposal. We're going to buy Greenland or we're going to take it over. Who knows what it's going to end up, but I think he's quite serious. And Denmark is on its heels. Their prime minister is Ralph Cramden now. It
really is.
They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And they're dealing with a force of nature that's serious about this. We'll see what happens. I think the residents of Greenland, they're not so happy with Denmark. They're sort of like left out on the corner. And maybe they like being part of America. I was just in American Samoa a few weeks ago. It's an American territory. And I asked my guide, what do you think about all this? They love it. They like it the way it is. They all have American passports. They can go to the mainland. They use American currency. They like the arrangement they have. They still want to be American Samoa. They don't want to become Hawaii. They don't want to become LA. They want to keep their culture and traditions, but they like being part of America. And what if the people of Greenland feel the same way? What I've read is a lot of them do.
So to be sort of a plebiscite to...
Yeah, being like American Samoa or Guam, being a territory and having the perks and benefits of ties to America, but still have your unique Guam is far more built up. There's a bunch of military
Sure.
bases. American Samoa has Army National Guard garrison, really not much of a military presence.
Panama.
So I think he's serious.
Okay.
Panama, he's serious. Panama is of strategic value because of the canal. Panama has not been a big friend of the U.S. The Darien Gap is in Panama, and I believe it's Ecuador that requires no visas for most countries. So people are coming in from African countries, Middle East, you name it, fly into Ecuador easily, and then with some money, get shuttled up to Panama, cross the Darien Gap, and continue on. There's been some good YouTube videos about the Darien Gap and how that all works, but it's like the Underground Railroad back in slave days. They transport people, and there are systems in place and NGOs. There are a bunch of NGOs that are facilitating illegal immigration to the U.S. based in Panama. So Panama hasn't been helpful on that front. So I think for one reason, Trump is not happy with them on that account, but it's also of strategic value. He has a newly confirmed Secretary of State. How many hotspots are there in the world?
Oh.
You might send the Secretary of State to Ukraine, to Russia, to Israel, to Yemen, to India, to China, to South Korea. No. Where's Marco Rubio's first visit? Panama. So if you don't think Trump is serious, what it's going to look like, I don't know. Trump obviously is keeping things close to the vest. He keeps a lot. What we see is probably 5% of what's really going on and what's happening behind the scenes. I'll give the Trump transition team a lot of credit. There have been no leaks. All of this has been what we're seeing roll out. This wasn't planned over a weekend.
Bill, you're on a radio show. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Peter, and nice to listen to you today, Doctor. I have a question regarding, well, first of all, just what is or was your practice?
I'm a retina surgeon.
He's an eye surgeon.
Back
Okay.
of the eye. So it's a
There you go.
subspecialty of ophthalmology
I
is what I do in my day job.
remember that now. I'm not sure how to phrase this. You were kind of touching on it with the NGOs. And my thought after he was inaugurated is how is he going to circle the wagons around Newsom and California? Because you probably have more NGOs operating out there milking the federal budget than any other state in the country. Was his use of the DEI shutting those offices down federally, does that shut off the faucet to the California offices? Because that money's got to go from federal to California.
That's a big part of it, but he just cuts off funding for NGOs.
And isn't that wonderful?
I mean, I don't know if he's done that in one of the executive orders. I haven't heard about it, but he said no foreign aid for 90 days, moratorium. So no money going to any other country for 90 days.
With the exception of the Camp David Accords.
Okay.
He'll keep them. But
he can do that. And
yes.
I think that's going to be a big part of it because the NGOs are funded by America and a lot of them work against American interests,
right.
Especially the ones that are funding and facilitating illegal migration across our borders.
Isn't George Soros just one of many? His name is the one that always comes up, and the others hide behind that.
Well, he's a wealthy man, and he's funding NGOs. He's supporting secretaries of state, attorneys general, district attorneys in a lot of places in America, like what's his name in D.C.? Not in D.C., in New York. Alvin Bragg.
Yeah.
I don't know who he's funding in Colorado.
I thought he was a little bit with the
if Jenna Griswold is getting money from him. I don't know. But there are a lot of state and local officials that get money from Soros and do his bidding. It's the defund the police and let the criminals out. And I think the last election cycle, a number of them lost. which is a good thing. But
I think there were 3 that lost in California.
George Soros can fund who he wants. I don't think Trump can stop that per se. Can they be investigated if they're doing something illegal? Well, if they are, then that should be dealt with. But the NGOs that are being funded by the U.S. government, that should stop. There should be an audit of that. If these, and in his executive orders, he has stipulated if people or organizations are doing things antithetical to America, they're going to be cut off.
And it's about time.
So-
one other comment, and then I have another question for you. I believe that Soros, he has a son and a daughter.
He has a son. Well, his son's running the show now.
Right, but the daughter lives here under her new name. I heard that she lives in Colorado, but you don't know that she's here.
I didn't know that. I've never heard that.
I don't know. Maybe she doesn't want to be part of the family business and just live a normal life.
Yeah. And how many Ukrainian generals did you say had homes that were burnt in L.A.?
A lot. I don't look it up in the news what the exact figure. I heard something like, I don't know, 70, but I don't know. But there are a number that are retired generals that have homes in Southern California that were affected by the fires. And so the money that we send gets laundered. Everybody gets their piece of it. How much is going to the Ukrainian war effort? My guess is it's like United Way and some of these big charities that administrative expense is 80% and 20% goes to actual charity work.
Riding in limos. What?
Yeah, Clinton Foundation. How much of their money goes to actual charitable work as opposed to flying Bill and Hillary on private planes?
But it's an old trick. The wealthy Cubans always banked in Miami. Vietnam, the Mandarin class always banked Hong Kong, the Philippines, or L.A. It's the back door. And so, especially in a situation like my understanding of Ukraine, is they're looking, it's bailout money. It's but the one I brought up is if you look at where the American weaponry is now ending up, that it's a bank shot. It leaves the military-industrial complex here. It goes to Ukraine, and the Ukrainians turn around, and these wealthy generals that you guys are both talking about, or bureaucrats, they're selling it.
They're selling it to arms dealers. That's
right.
Played a big part in Benghazi of one of the missiles that the U.S., the CIA sent over there, shot down a helicopter in Afghanistan and U.S. troops on board, and they found the missile and serial number and whatever else. Guess what? It traced back to the U.S. government.
Sure.
So Christopher Stevens was sent over there to clean that up. I guess that didn't work out too well.
No, but the Ukrainians are at best duplicitous. And Trump,
one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Look at Google most corrupt countries in the world, and some of the big consulting and accounting firms have lists, and Ukrainians near the top.
Wow. Good call.
How often was he in the White House?
Who?
With Biden.
Zelensky?
Yeah.
I don't know.
More than once.
There were some news stories of when he was at the UN, his wife on big shopping sprees at Tiffany's. Big diamonds and necklaces, and that's but nice. He was a former comedian, so I don't think he was personally wealthy, but all of a sudden they have lots of money. How's that work?
When the U.S. props up corrupt governments, whether it's Southeast Asia or you fill in the blank, Havana, that's what they do. The Philippines, Mrs. Marcos had how many pairs of shoes?
Oh, so that was legendary.
That? Yeah, and that we propped the Marcoses up.
What I want to know is not Ukrainian generals getting money. I want to know about U.S. politicians getting money.
U-turns and comes back.
I mean, Hunter Biden had business deals there.
Of course he
did. I think Mitt Romney's son might have been involved in some of that.
They knew.
It's money laundering. It's taking U.S. taxpayer money and laundering it through foreign aid, foreign countries. Lindsey Graham was gung-ho war. How much money that we sent to Ukraine somehow worked its way back into his campaign or his coffers?
Yeah, it's the U-turn.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If we're going to do an audit of Ukraine,
Yeah.
That should be part of it.
See what happens.
Well, and then I'll just say one last thing. I cannot get the smile off of my face from last Monday because this is a start. It's an absolute start, and it is 50 years overdue. My grandchildren maybe have a chance now.
As I said when I came on the show, I was reminded this morning that it's a month ago was Christmas Day. And I corrected her and said, no, last Monday was Christmas Day.
We got to pause. Hang on. Good call,
Thank you,
everybody.
Peter.
Everybody
Thank you,
stay here.
Doctor.
That's Dr. Brian Joondeph, Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS. It is cold outside.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump signed an executive order creating a cryptocurrency working group tasked with proposing a new regulatory framework for digital assets and exploring the creation of a cryptocurrency stockpile. The much-anticipated action also ordered that banking service for crypto companies be protected and banned the creation of central bank digital currencies, which could compete with existing cryptocurrencies. The order sees Trump fulfill a campaign trail pledge to be a crypto president and promote the adoption of digital assets. The International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor says he has requested arrest warrants for 2 top Afghan Taliban officials over the repression of women. Karim Khan said he asked judges to approve warrants for the group's supreme leader and the head of Afghanistan's Supreme Court. Khan accused the men of crimes against humanity for gender-based persecution. The Taliban have barred women from jobs, most public spaces, and education beyond the 6th grade after they took back control of the country in 2021 during Biden's hasty and deadly withdrawal. They also banned buildings from having windows looking into places where a woman might sit or stand. Human rights groups applauded the ICC move against the Taliban leadership. There is no deadline for judges to rule on a request for a warrant, but a decision typically takes around 4 months. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
15 minutes left in the show. We'll go here. Lines are jammed. Hey, Mike, you're on a radio show. Dr. Brian Joondeph is our guest. It's cold outside. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good show, Peter and Dr. Joondeph. I enjoy your articles on American Thinker quite often.
Thanks very much.
I guess I'm going to be a little pessimistic here, but I'm on a sugar high. I enjoy exactly what's been going on this last week. I enjoy the results of the election. I voted for Trump. But I look at it and I go, did we really get anywhere as a country? Is this not just another temporary swing of the pendulum, which has been oscillating back and forth for 10, 12, 16 years? 75 million people voted for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz after 4 years of Biden. So I guess my point is, the loons, the crazies, the communists are out there in force. As a country, we are split down the middle. I think they're just back in their holes temporarily. They're going to regroup, bring their money out. And is this a permanent? Do you view this as kind of a change in philosophical direction for the country, or just a temporary swing of the pendulum once again?
I think it's a small change, but you realize how large the U.S. bureaucracy is, the administrative state, the ruling class, the blob, whatever you want to call it. It's like a big 1,000-foot freighter in the Great Lakes. They take 5 miles to come to a stop. They don't turn like a speedboat does. Everything's slow. But you have to start somewhere. And yes, the country's divided. I would be more optimistic if Congress can put some of these executive orders into law, because if it's simply executive orders and Congress does nothing,
it can go the other way.
The next president, if it's a Democrat, just reverses it. Just like Biden reversed Trump, who reversed Biden. So it needs to be put into law. Then it's a lot harder to change. But it's a start. And you can be pessimistic that, nothing's going to change, but you have to start somewhere. And it's like you're overweight and getting on an exercise program, or you're alcoholic and stop drinking. You got to take a first step and then a second step and keep at it. And as long as that's happening, I'm optimistic. And it's up to Trump. This is his show now. And we voted. We gave him the steering wheel, and he has to drive the car now.
If it goes well, there's a line that says, "You hope a president does well, because the country will do well." And you take the best example is Joe Biden hardly did well. The country did not do well,
and a lot can happen. There's pandemics, nuclear war. There's all sorts of bad things that could derail everything. So,
but if you have that firm hand on the wheel, and the country can come through.
We've got a little bit of irrational exuberance here. I don't think one person is putting too much on one person to change some of these very big things that are going on, whether it's budget or bureaucracy. It's up to we, the people, having some kind of direction that we clearly express and want. And I don't see that. We have not clearly expressed what we want.
I think we have, because I think the people he has in place are going to do that. Trump is not going to fix the healthcare system and vaccine injuries and all that. RFK will. And RFK won't fix all of it.
He didn't win a landslide.
Well, nobody's won a landslide.
Neither did Abraham Lincoln.
Nobody's won a landslide. Reagan got 55% of the vote.
Fundamental change would be, I guess, more probable out of somebody like a Reagan that won in '84.
Let me give you,
where you had a clear direction from the country.
But Reagan won what? 55% of the
I was going to say, let me give you the worst.
I mean, he got an electoral college.
The worst, best example: Lyndon Johnson beats Barry Goldwater. And I had a chance to speak with Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater said, they said if I won, then we'd have young men would be fighting in Vietnam and there'd be war in the streets. He said, I lost.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you, I'm ready for it all. I'm glad. I'm happy what Trump's doing. And maybe I should just get more optimistic here, but I keep looking at the number of idiots that vote the way they do, and I go, like in Colorado, it's not changing.
It's a blue state.
California is going to be forever voting the way they are, and New York, and it's like it just seems like we're split down the middle. We're schizophrenic.
Yes, we're tribal. The country has become tribal.
But this is a step, and I would encourage you to be optimistic and let things play out. Trump has planned this. You can see how it's rolling out, that this is not an accidental presidency or topsy-turvy anything. It's very well orchestrated.
And they're moving fast.
Absolutely fast. And
they are.
And I believe we're only seeing a fraction of what's going on and what's planned. A lot of it.
Well, that's why I called. So I'll be more optimistic, and I'll keep reading you there. And I appreciate the feedback. Okay.
Thank you. We're coming up on time. It's 10 minutes before 1. Dr. Brian Joondep's here. You off air have been saying that these guys are, I don't want to say in planning sessions, but they certainly know what they want to do. It isn't one of those things we can sit around and say, gee, what should we do? They know what they should do.
This is all orchestrated. They have a playbook, and this is like a show. It's the saying out there in the internet world, you're watching a show. Well, you might be. And this is planned, orchestrated, and they're laying out one act after the other.
Have the tables turned?
I think so.
Yeah. So
the media has very little influence. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, corporate media.
Who a newspaper endorsed was a big deal.
Yeah, and now nobody cares. And social media, Elon Musk having control of Twitter, that's huge. And all of a sudden, Zuckerberg is coming to heel. I don't know if he's sincere, but he's playing ball.
But one thing for sure is Musk helped. He brought in that whatever size of that team and the knowledge that they have of how these screens work.
And that's not accidental.
Oh, not at all.
How much defense money did Musk get during Trump's first term for satellites, for rockets? Sure. I have a feeling a lot of this was planned and discussed.
He won that NASA contract because he's the one that brought it back. That's part of the book, was they failed 2 times. And his board says, that's it. And he says, no, we're going to go one more time. But I think they brought the rocket to Vandenberg, and they fired it from Vandenberg. He brought it back down. He got the contract.
Well, I think Trump was talking to him even during his first term.
Sure. Of course.
How we can work together.
How many times a day do you think he talks to Putin?
I believe he's already talked to him. Biden didn't talk to Putin once since the Ukraine war started. That's totally irresponsible.
How many times do you think Putin and the president have spoken?
I'm sure
more than once,
half a dozen times at least.
How about with Netanyahu?
Oh, he speaks with everybody.
Yeah.
Have letters been exchanged between Trump and the little rocket man in North Korea? I'll bet they have.
Sure they have.
They don't speak on the phone, but they exchange letters, and Trump's keeping quiet about it. But I'm sure communication lines are open with China.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Henry Kissinger once was quoted as saying, you can talk to anybody. It just depends on what you're talking about.
Well, correct. And there's enemies and there's adversaries.
Absolutely.
And the adversaries are our competitors, and it's a tough game out there. You can talk to each other. You have to talk to each other. If you don't, then you have what happened in that book I mentioned, Nuclear War.
I'm going to pick that up.
Not good.
Thank you.
Oh, this has been great.
No, it's been
too long, and it's really been fun.
And you've been terrific on the air. And again, tell the folks the places that they can read you.
I write a column for American Thinker every week. I have one on Monday about Elon Musk and the so-called Nazi salute. So you guys will get a kick out of that. I write for Rasmussen Reports. I have a Substack. I think it's Dr. Brian's Substack. Search by my name. I think it's Dr. Brian's. And I post all my writings there, travel articles, etc. I post my stuff on LinkedIn, on Twitter. So it's out there.
Music's in the background. Have a great day, everybody. I'll see you next Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much.